Sports Network welcomes you to the following presentation of the Tour de France.
Baby on board, Belgium's Philippe Gilbert looks to make it back-to-back Stage 1 victories at the Tour as he readies to roll over the roads he grew up on. With all eyes on the yellow jersey, the time trialists tackled the prologue with an overriding sense of urgency in Belgium. This top contender made an early dent in what is sure to be a lengthy fight against the determined defending champion. While one of time trialing's best had a meeting with misfortune.
The world champion will not win the prologue this afternoon.
In the end, it was Radio Shack's Fabian Cancellara who turned things around for his team by taking home his second prologue win here in Liège.
Fabian Fabulous Cancellara for the fifth time will walk off with the yellow jersey for tomorrow's opening day of the Tour de France.
But to remain as race leader, he'll have to hang on to the pack as Stage 1 heads into the Ardennes, where undulating terrain and a steep uphill finish mean the rider who packs the most punch will likely ride away the victor. Stage 1 of the 2012 Tour de France starts next. Once again, Belgium is our backdrop, and today the riders will launch from Liège. Oddly, only 5 miles separate the beginning from the end, but on this stage, the athletes are taking the scenic route, a 123-mile journey to the finish line in Seraing. Hey everyone, I'm Liam McHugh. Welcome to Tour de France Live, presented by Cadillac. 4 miles down, which means just about 2,168 miles remain in the 99th Tour de France. Today we hit the open road for Stage 1. It's a course that will roll through a region where the Battle of the Bulge took place. But today's winner will likely be the one who shows the most punch on the uphill finish. With that, I welcome in my colleague, Bob Roll. Bob, we are about 100 yards away from the finish here in Seraing. Today, the yellow jersey will be worn by Fabian Cancellara. Obviously, a huge individual honor for him. But how big is it that he has the yellow jersey for his team, Team Radio Shack Nissan?
Well, Team Radio Shack, one of the super teams in cycling, and it's been an abysmal season so far for Cancellara's team. And it looked to get even worse in the Tour de France without their star, Andy Schleck, or even their team manager, Johan Brunel. But all of those fears have been blotted out by a brilliant ride by Fabian Cancellara to win the prologue yesterday.
So he has the yellow jersey. The question is, can he keep it? And how long could he possibly keep it?
I think it's within his capability to keep it at least until Stage 7. Stage 7 is a mountaintop finish. That's not his ideal terrain, but he could keep it the first week of the Tour de France, and that would be massive for Team Radio Shack Nissan.
Today, the main course begins. Yesterday, the appetizer, the prologue. Let's take a look back, and let's begin with Peter Sagan. The 22-year-old, bit of a bumpy ride, but he shows some skill just by remaining on his bike here.
Well, this is a great save. Anybody else in the peloton probably would have crashed. It's been a wildly successful season so far for Sagan, but the prologue didn't work out for him. But he did a good ride anyways, just not to crash.
Prologue didn't work out for him. He's 22. It did work out for 23-year-old American TJ Van Garderen.
Teammates with Cadel Evans, TJ Van Garderen, one of the white jersey contenders for Best Young Rider, had a great prologue. 4th place against the best in the world. Great ride by TJ.
Tony Martin, the current world time trial champion, huge favorite for this event. Very bumpy day, though, Bob.
Hit some glass, flatted on his front tire. He had to change bikes in an event so short, so quick, just over 7 minutes in duration. No way you can make that up after a bike change. He's losing time to Cancellara this whole interval when he's trying to get his spare bike. It was a quick change, but it took him out of contention for the prologue win.
Been told his bumpy ride continued today. Had a bit of a spill, but he is back in the peloton as we speak. We move on to Bradley Wiggins, considered by many the overall favorite to take the yellow, and right off the bat, Bob.
This is an ideal way to start the Tour de France to win for Bradley Wiggins. Didn't get the yellow jersey. That will take the pressure off his team, but he did get time on all of his rivals. Great riding by Wiggins in the time trial.
Fabian Cancellara. Bob, it's only a 4-mile course, and it wasn't even close.
He absolutely blistered the field. Cancellara, this is his specialty. A lot of pressure on him, but he always delivers in the Tour de France, and that was a great ride by Cancellara. That's what he does best. That's why he's one of the biggest stars of the sport, and he does get the first yellow jersey because of the win of the prologue.
All eyes on this man, the defending Tour de France champion, Cadel Evans. What did you make of his opening day?
He rode safe. He rode control. He had some power. He finished pretty close in the standings, 13th, but he did lose 10 seconds to his main rival, Bradley Wiggins.
So the prologue's in the book, and here are the Michelob Ultra overall standings. Obviously, Cancellara wears the yellow jersey. Bradley Wiggins just 7 seconds back. And the American, TJ Van Garderen, and perhaps the biggest surprise on day one in the 4 spots. We looked 6 through 10, Bob.
Denny Menshaw looking rather dangerous there in 8th in the prologue. Andy Grifcro, the early leader, in 10th in the prologue.
And right here, we'd like to point out Cadel Evans in 13th, 17 seconds off the pace. But the big competition really is between Cadel Evans. It's between Bradley Wiggins. Bradley Wiggins, Britain's best, the bookmaker's favorite to win the yellow jersey. Did he send a real message to all of the competition yesterday?
Well, this is a very clear message from Bradley Wiggins that he is absolutely flying still. He's been incredibly successful so far this year. He comes in as the hot favorite after big wins in 3 stage races earlier, but he said a great prologue. He absolutely demolishes competition for such a short race. That was impressive riding by Wiggins.
We have 3 weeks. We have 20 stages still to go. There's a 10-second difference between Bradley Wiggins and Cadel Evans. How significant is that?
Well, if you do the math, and we still have almost 60 more miles of time trialing, that would be a huge gap at the end of the Tour de France if those gaps remain the same. I expect him to be a lot closer, but that is a good start for Bradley Wiggins. Cadel Evans, a little bit of work to do.
There are 8 Americans in this race. 3 of the 6 oldest riders in this tour are American. But yesterday we saw the future of American cycling. 23-year-old TJ Van Garderen, the man from Montana. How surprised were you by his 4th-place finish?
That's very surprising. He's right up there in a time trial against the best in the world. And when you can do that by yourself, without the help of any teammates, it's a significant marker that this is a man to watch. He's highly coveted in the European peloton as one of the men capable of winning the Tour de France future in their career.
We've talked about that, capable of winning. We expect him to develop into an overall threat for the Tour. He's 23 years old. How far away do you think he is?
Well, he made a great move by joining Team BMC to be on the team of the defending Tour de France champion, Cadel Evans. He'll learn a lot from Cadel in the next couple of years. I expect in 3 years' time to be competitive in the top 10, and perhaps thereafter go for the podium, and who knows, maybe the next American Tour de France winner.
Great start for TJ Van Garderen. Today, stage 1 of the 99th Tour de France. We will bring you complete live coverage of the race as soon as we are permitted. Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin, they will join us next for their predictions as Tour de France Live, presented by Cadillac, rolls on. The 2012 Tour de France Live on NBC Sports Network is presented by Cadillac, the new standard of the world.
Sports Network.
TJ Van Garderen hits the line with a terrific time, 2nd best.
What's happening out? Is that a problem? There's a problem with his machine, and the world champion will not win the prologue this afternoon.
Wiggins hits the line now. He is in 1st place. Fabian Cancellara is on a ride. Best time at halfway. Is it going to be his 5th opening day in the Tour de France? It looks like it. Cadel Evans concedes on the Bradley Wiggins just about 9 seconds.
It's a great day for me, for my family, and for sure a great opening for the team.
Fabian Fabulous Cancellara.
Cancellara, his 5th opening time trial victory at the Tour de France. He pretty much dominates that. He'll look to retain the yellow jersey on what could be a very bumpy, very difficult, very tricky, challenging course, Bob. Time for guided tour. Let's fire up the Geico stage map. Stage 1 of the 2012 Tour de France. What are we looking at?
198 total kilometers, 123 miles in the province of Liège. We're still in Belgium. Lots of climbs. The breakaway, presumably going for some of the king of the mountain points. The polka dot jersey up for grabs. There is a sprint point out on the race course. That's the green S there. And there is a 4th category climb up to the finish line in Seraing. A very tough climb to the finish. Competitive stage. Watch that intermediate sprint, that green S, to see if Cavendish goes for it. We'll know if he's going for the green jersey.
Time for the facts. Nothing but the stage facts. Stage 1 of the Tour de France, Liège to Seraing, 5 climbs, all Cat 4s. Intermediate sprint points at 81.5 kilometers to go. This is the Tour's 3rd visit to Seraing. So when we talk about expectations for this, sprinters points up, King of the Mountain points up for grab. We just saw the course. What do you expect?
Oh, I think it's going to be a very dangerous finale. So watch for all of the GC contenders to try to stay near the front. The attackers also will be looking for a stage win. It's very narrow roads, so the last few miles of this bike race are going to be incredibly thrilling. And there's really twists and turns and cobble streets before a very steep last climb to the finish. It's a great stage to go out on the open road.
Stage 1 of the 2012 Tour de France. Let's take a look back right now to Stage 1 2011. We're going to see a familiar face, especially for the people here in Belgium.
This is the man the course was designed for. That's Philippe Gilbert. On his wheel there was Cancellara. He lit the fuse, but it was that man to set off the fireworks. Cadel Evans chased him to the line and finished second on the stage. It wouldn't surprise me if we had the same repeat for this year.
I have a feeling we're going to hear Philippe Gilbert's name uttered in our next segment here. It is time, the moment of great significance, the Cadillac. Performance predictions. We take a glance at the standings, and it shows us that Phil Liggett's reign of terror simply continues here. 4 points in the prologue, 4 points for a correct first place pick. Paul Sherwin got 3 points. He picked second. And then there's Bob. All right, Bob, no points on day 1 in the prologue. Time to bounce back. Who do you have in stage number 1?
I think Peter Sagan will get a little bit of extra incentive not being able to contend the prologue. He clipped out, nearly crashed. We just saw that. I think this finish, however, suits him perfectly. It's a long uphill drag. It's very technical. He's one of the best bike handlers in the business. He's a great sprinter, and he's a solid climber. He's won a stage very similar to this recently in the Tour of Switzerland. Peter Sagan's my man.
Time now to bring in Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin. They're in the booth over by the finish line of stage 1. Paul, 3 points in day 1. You're a confident man.
I am a very confident man. I'm really not sure why Bob didn't pick Philippe Gilbert. Where are we, Bob? We're in Liège. Philippe Gilbert lives 15 miles away from here. He's on form. He finished in the top 10 in the prologue yesterday. So, sorry, Bob. Philippe Gilbert is going to be my pick today.
Phil Liggett, you have the jersey. Show it to us.
There it is. It's still with us. Got a feeling I might lose it today, probably to Paul, because I'm 3rd to pick. But on the other hand, remember that Edward Boysenhagen had a great win in the Tour last year. Bad weather conditions, tough finish in Italy, in Pinerolo. He is a man for this finish. He's looked at the finish, he's checked it out, and I think he might be giving his head to win today, which will give me 8 points, and I'll keep yellow. Sorry, Bob.
At least he apologizes. Always polite.
Yeah,
Phil, Paul, thanks so much. Good luck to both of you. Enjoy the race. All right, those are the men we're looking at to potentially win the stage. All eyes, of course, are on Wiggins and Evans. In the first segment, we said the 10-second differential between them was significant. So today, what can Evans do to make up some of that time?
Well, I think Cadel Evans has a chance to get a little bit of that time back from Bradley Wiggins. I think if Cadel goes all in on this last climb and Bradley Wiggins is anywhere but right on his wheel, he could see a little bit of a gap. There are going to be gaps in the field. Evans has a chance to attack, get some points back, and reduce that deficit of 10 seconds. It's not a lot of time, but it is significant psychologically. We'll see if Cadel goes on the attack. Wiggins will have to watch Cadel's every move on today's stage.
They are on the open road. The race is underway. 2012 Tour de France Stage 1. We're taking a sneak peek at the lead group, Bob.
The 6 men in the lead, no surprise. 4 of them are Frenchmen. One of these riders will have the King of the Mountain jersey at the end of the stage. They were delayed by a train, but they still have a little bit of a lead. They're going out on the breakaway. These are your 6 leaders to start today's stage. Beautiful weather conditions so far.
Delayed by a train. We'll talk about another delay, and been a very interesting stage 1 here at the Tour de France. More on that when we return. Plus, we will hear from Philippe Gilbert, the many may consider the favorite, the hometown hero, as Tour de France Live presented by Cadillac continues after this. The 2012 Tour de France Live on NBC Sports Network is presented by Cadillac, the new standard of the world. Welcome back to Tour de France Live. Joined now by Scott Moniger. Scott will get your take on today's race in just a moment, but it's early in stage 1 of the 2012 Tour de France, and it has been extremely interesting. The peloton already delayed by a train for 45 seconds. Pretty interesting there. And also very early in the stage, brought to an abrupt stop by a very short, very diplomatic, very calm protest earlier today. You see a little protest in front of the peloton. Everyone's paused as we zoom in. Steel workers protesting. They love steel. Apparently someone else loves money. Bob, I enjoy both of those things.
What's not to love about steel, though?
Yeah, or money. Those are both. You know what? But in the past, though, guys, there have been protests, not always handled so diplomatically.
Well, they didn't call Bernardino, who was taking out a protester here in Paris-Nice in 1984, the Badger. For nothing, Bernardino was one of the tough street-fighting men, the last Frenchman to win the Tour de France 26 years ago.
And we see that shot of him. Bernardino's not the biggest man in the world, Scott, but he looked pretty aggressive there.
I think this may have been, the beginning of the hard shell rule right after this event right here. So, more of a self-preservation kind of thing for the riders.
Let's bring it back to this race. Mark Cavendish last year won the green jersey, awarded to the top sprinter in the race. We're going to see an odd sight today. It's his teammate Bradley Wiggins who's going after the yellow jersey. He will be wearing the green jersey. He is wearing the green jersey in today's Stage 1. As we take a live look at him, maybe we can see there he is. Bradley Wiggins, odd sight. Mark Cavendish probably enjoying this right here. Cavendish says his goals are yellow for Wiggins, gold for himself. He's referring to the Olympics for gold. Today, we will see an intermediate sprint. Scott, do you think we'll see Cavendish get aggressive in this stage?
I only see Cavendish going for the midway bonus if it's really there for the taking, if it's really easy. I mean, this is clearly a guy who's won 20 stages here before. He's the thoroughbred sprinter. I still think he's got his eye on the green, and having Wiggins dangle it in front of him like that is probably a little bit torturous.
So that's what he's thinking, but sometimes, competitive juices start going. How competitive would you say Mark Cavendish is these days?
Well, Mark Cavendish is an absolute animal. You can't be a sprinter without having a wide streak of competitiveness. And Mark Cavendish, one of the toughest bike racers in the world. Be surprised if he goes for the green intermediate points. And we'll find out whether or not he's just been bluffing or if he's serious about the green jersey on the intermediate sprint on today's stage.
One man who we know is definitely going after this stage is the Belgian Philippe Gilbert, not just the hometown favorite. He is the actual favorite to win the stage. There is a ton of pressure on this man. Earlier, he spoke about it with Craig Homer.
Philippe, I tell you what, a lot of people have circled this stage for you. How much have you put a priority on today?
I think it's a big opportunity for me, and yeah, I will have a chance maybe, and with BMC cycling team, we have a great chance. Yeah.
In terms of comparing, he wants to come back to Dad. In terms of comparing last year to this year, at this point last year you had 12 wins. Has it been hard to stay positive throughout this early part of the season?
It's a big difference, it is for sure. But I had a lot of little things, going bad for me, and on this level you need everything right and everything at 100%, and it was not like this for me. So in plays are being like 100%, of us always like 80, 70, and then you just play nothing in the final.
I tell you what, though, you obviously have your priorities straight. At the end of the day, this is just a bike race, but the important thing is family, isn't it?
Yeah, it's being healthy and being happy and having family close to you, and the rest is fun.
Bon chance.
Thank you.
Philippe Gilbert's son, Alan, getting a lot of FaceTime in today's show. How much extra pressure do you think is on a guy like Philippe Gilbert when you race in a big stage like this and it's in your hometown?
Just regardless of what he's saying right now, I think he wants to win this stage and he wants to win it in a big time. And he showed that yesterday. He attacked that course really, really aggressively, made proud the national championship jersey of Belgium. And I think he's the man to beat today. I really think so.
Stage number 1 of the 2012 Tour de France is underway. We're going to take a live look. This is the Radio Shack, Team Radio Shack doing work at the front. It's the team that has the yellow jersey.
Fabian Cancellara in that long line of riders in the yellow jersey. These are his teammates on the front of the peloton. Jaroslav Popovic, Jens Voigt, Heimar Zubeldia. You could not ask for a better group of guys to guide you through a tough stage, technical stage. He has a great bunch of teammates around him to defend that yellow jersey in today's stage.
What can they do specifically to help Fabian Cancellara keep that? We look at the profile of the course right here. So what specifically can his teammates do to help out Cancellara today?
Well, when we move closer towards the finish line, what they can do is keep him in the right position. It's a very tough, twisting, very technical few turns before that last climb. And as long as Cancellara is in the first 5 or 10 places, he'll be able to measure his opponents, measure the acceleration, and be able to match those. Cancellara, a couple of years ago in a race in Belgium called the Tour of Flanders, they said he had a motor in his bicycle the way he went up a cobble climb called the Mur de Gromont. So if he has those type of legs, that type of form, that fitness, he'll be able to defend the yellow jersey as long as his teammates put him in the right position to do that.
We're taking a look right now at the leaders group. Scott, quickly before we go, does Cancellara keep the yellow jersey, and does Philippe Gilbert win this stage?
Yes and yes. Yeah.
You think Cancellara keeps it? And Bob said that he thinks if Cancellara keeps it, he could keep it for the next, till stage 7? At this point, do you agree with that?
As much as I'd like to disagree with Bob, I've got to agree with him on this one. Yeah, I think they have a lot of reason, a lot of motivation behind this jersey. As Bob said earlier, this is a real savior for them. And seeing this thing through stage 7, for sure, I think they're up to the task.
Pace yourself. 19 more stages. There'll be plenty to disagree with, Bob. Trust me. The leader group, a 4-minute gap. Remember, to keep up with the Tour de France, you'll need the most advanced digital experience of its kind. Go to NBCSports.com/TDF Live to get Tour de France live race coverage coming up.
One of the busiest ports in Belgium. The River Meuse, though, can go back to sleep shortly as the riders now say farewell to Liège and head to nearby Seraing in Belgium. It's a ride of 123 miles the way they go in a clockwise loop of the famous Belgian Ardennes before we find the chateau in Seraing. And indeed, this finishing line here, the cloud is about, but so far, fingers crossed, the rain has kept away. 3:55 is the latest time gap. Paul, this group got away literally on the drop of the flag today, and they've never been seen since.
They haven't been seen since. They built themselves an advantage of 4 minutes and 50 seconds at one stage, but when you look at the front end of the main field, Phil, Radio Shack Nissan have said they will defend this jersey right down to the outside of the Alps if they can, and that's why they've got all of their riders sitting on the front end of the main field, and they've started to reduce that gap down to 3 minutes and 55 seconds. They've pegged those 6 riders at the front. So the best rider in that leading group, by the way, is Michael Morkov, who a former silver medalist in the track championships in Los Angeles, I believe. He's in 51st place. He's 24 seconds behind.
Also a silver medalist in the pursuit, the team pursuit that is, in the Beijing Olympic Games. But he's now turned his attention to the road. He is best placed, 24 seconds off the race lead after his ride in the time trial yesterday. And he is a first-timer in the Tour, along with Nicolas Edet, also in that breakaway. That's where we are at the moment. Behind us, the first 2 climbs. Morkov got the first figure 4 there. The second figure 4 was won by Urtasun, and we're now heading for the third one. And then, of course, after the feed, the green sprint point. So we will have our first leader in the King of the Mountains today. This man knows all about that. Jens Voigt once wore the leader's jersey in the King of the Mountains. Fell off when he wore it, actually. He hit a brick wall on the descent. Voigt is now heading up to 41 years of age.
Yep, there's the world champion just a little bit up to the front end of the main field, and that, of course, was Mark Cavendish. The question mark is, will he sprint halfway through this course, or is he just going to go for stage victories? Everybody knows this young man has been the most prolific winner of stages in the Tour de France over the last 4 years, with 20 victories amounted in 4 years only.
I just feel as though he won't, Paul, but we'll find out. He's a proud man when it comes to sprint. I think he's a little diversion in the Sky team this year because their aim is a final yellow for Bradley Wiggins. But the breakaway here, Jean, Urtasun, Bouet, Edet and Delaplace. Edet and Morkov, there he is. They are the 2 first-timers in the breakaway, and they haven't wasted any time in getting into the breakaway.
No, that was the important thing. Everybody wanted to get onto the first breakaway of the Tour de France because just in case somebody makes a tactical error on the running towards the finish. 31 countries represented in the Tour de France this year, and in fact, for the first time ever, an Argentinian. He rides for Team Saxo Bank, JJ Haedo.
Oh, he's really an American, isn't he?
Well, he speaks with an American accent.
Well, he spent a lot of time in the States as well, but even so, you're absolutely right. The tentacles of the Tour de France spreading quite literally around all continents of the world. Happy days for the moment. Number 4 is Philippe Gilbert. We know all about him. He gave his baby a little ride round the start area this morning in Liège. Now it's down to business. He's a good tip for the victory today. It is a very difficult approach the line over cobblestones. It is a mile up the hill, Paul. It'll have to be judged to absolute perfection.
If you go too early on the run up towards the finish line today, you will fade and you will get passed by faster men. You have to time it to perfection. It's a very difficult start to the climb. It starts off steeply, but then it continues right the way up to the finishing line here. It never really gets very easy. I reckon that Philippe Gilbert has been and looked at this climb about 50 times over the last 6 months, Phil. He lives 15 miles away from here, so he will have studied this climb to perfection. He'll know every which way he has to go to try and win. He hasn't had a great season. We know that. He hasn't even opened up his bank account yet so far this year, but, you know, I think he's put all of his problems behind him, and when you finish in the top 10 of a prologue time trial at the Tour de France, and your name's Philippe Gilbert, you're racing in Belgium, you've got to do well.
Well, we're looking at Edvald Boysenhagen here in his brand new champion's jersey as the new champion of Norway. He pulled it on today for the first time in his career. As he passes through our picture, he might suit, and these are the boys of Levi Leipheimer, the Amiga Pharma Quickstep.
You might just have noticed him wearing that yellow helmet as well, Phil. That's an innovation by the race organisation this year. They've actually asked all of the teams to ask their helmet sponsors to prepare yellow helmets, and when you're leading the team classification, you wear the yellow helmets as leaders, and that, of course, at the moment is on the shoulders of Team Sky.
Now, you'll notice a lot of the teams here are riding as teammates all around each other. There is a reason for that. They seek out their team leader and they mob around him to keep him out of trouble, and that's what they do. As we're looking here now at
Tony Martin.
Thank you.
So he crashed at 11 kilometres. You just see his elbow there, Phil, and just on the outside of his knee there. Not really a great start for him. He had a flat tyre in the opening prologue time trial, which I think he would have been very close to the time of Fabian Cancellara, and after 11 kilometres or 7 miles of racing today, he found himself on the ground.
Sylvain Chavanel did an outstanding time trial yesterday, the best in his career when he finished third yesterday, and he's up for it, that's for sure. He said he will try and help Levi Leipheimer, the American from Santa Rosa, win the Tour de France. Well, 4 Sundays from now we'll give you the answer to that, because the Tour de France is now over the next 3 weeks. The 2012 Tour de France on NBC Sports Network is presented by Michelob Ultra, the superior... Let's remind ourselves now, the USA Cycling American standings. This after that brilliant ride yesterday. TJ Van Garderen in the white rookie jersey today. He's in 4th place. George Hincapie in his 17th tour is 22nd. Expect more from Farah van der Velde and Dave Zabriskie as this tour unwinds around France. It now has a huge international presence, but a great American one. Levi Leipheimer, Tommy D and Chris Horner. Well, we can now go to Steve Perino, and he can tell us a little bit more interesting facts about these boys.
Looking at this madness here at the Tour, it'd be easy to understand how an American might feel that every day is an away game. But with the 2 stages in Belgium, the opposite might actually be the case. Apart from the Belgians, the Americans may feel more at home than anyone. In fact, 10 years ago, USA Cycling decided that the best way to develop their athletes was to bring them over to Belgium. In fact, they've even written a book about it, The Belgian Hammer, not to be confused with the Velvet Hammer. When you come to Belgium, many people believe this is the heartbeat of cycling, and it is a tough one. So the theory was, bring them young to suffer long, and suffer often. And in that way, they will be ready for the Tour. Guys like Tyler Farah, TJ Van Garderen, they have been through the system. And so today, maybe, they will be as comfortable as anyone as they suffer.
Yes, and there is Levi Leipheimer wearing 191. Made his name over these last few years by being the winner of the Amgen Tour of California. This year, though, it was a comeback race for him after his broken leg, and now he's showing the form that might see him on the podium in Paris 4 Sundays from today.
Well, his teammates seem to believe that he is the man who will be the leader of this race, and he is a very good individual time trialist. And the fact that we've got 63 miles of individual time trialing in the Tour de France this year is making a lot of people think that maybe the time trialists will have a slightly better chance this season. That little arm movement there was from Jaroslav Popovic. He's one of the men on Radio Shack Nissan. They will do everything they can this afternoon to protect the overall lead of Fabian Cancellara, because they honestly believe he will stay in contact on this final climb of the day, and he could lead this race, Phil, for the whole week.
Well, 2 minutes 48 is showing at the moment as we're now looking at the peloton. They're in no rush, but they are slightly reducing, and now there is a problem. That's why he was moving to the back of the field. He's going to change a wheel, I think.
Yeah, but there's no panic. There is no panic at all. He had his hand up here. It's not a flat tire. I think they're just adjusting the brakes there.
Saddle or brakes, yeah. That's his saddle. It must. He's noted it's probably half a millimetre too high.
Well, you know, there's no panic on board here. You know, Phil, the race is riding at a steady tempo. He doesn't need to panic. He just take his time to get back into the main field. He used the convoy of cars to slipstream his way to the back end of the peloton and then assume his position at the front end of the main field. That little repair cost about 22 seconds.
Well, yesterday that was about what it took for Tony Martin in the prologue. That was very significant. But today, I don't think there's very much concern, because this is the road race sections of the Tour de France now, and that Leipheimer will get through the convoy and back into the pack. The pressure is not on at the moment, as the breakaway is still up the road, but none of those men up the road are likely to win this year's Tour de France. I don't think they'll win the stage either, but time will tell us the answer to that one.
Now, on the left-hand side, the orangey yellow colour that you've seen is the distance that we've covered. The blue is what is left to go, and that's 116 kilometres in new currency, and that is around about 70 miles to go to the finish. 72 miles to be exact. And these boys are Radio Shack Nissan. They're doing all of the pacemaking. That breakaway of 6 riders had a maximum advantage of 4 minutes and 50, and they've now got it very much in control at 2 minutes 47 seconds.
Yes, and these are the narrow roads of Belgium. An enormous crowd here. We're going through the Ardennes here. We're in the area of the famous Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the oldest professional classic in the world. Started back in 1894, and it's the home, of course, of Philippe Gilbert in this region, and he'll want to win today. Radio Shack doing what they have to do, set the pace at the front here now as the riders continually drop back. This is Alessandro Patacchi, the man currently racing with the highest number of victories by any cyclist, 176. He's a sprinter, and as the twitch fibers die away, as age comes upon him, he's not quite the winner he was, but he is still a very, very aggressive bike rider. He'll go back up to the peloton without wasting too much energy, nips into the slipstreams of the car, and as long as he keeps making progress, the referees will not penalise him.
Again, this is the professional adjustment of the rear brake there.
I bet there's nothing wrong with that brake.
Probably not at all, but you know, as a professional athlete, you try and get away with as much as you can within the rules and regulations. But watch out for that little directional island in the middle, please, because if you ride into that, the island won't move.
No, as he nearly found out. Anyway, the peloton under the escort. Andries Kloden at the front at the moment. Radio Shack doing what they have to do now. They're going to ride for Fabian Cancellara. As Bob Rollers predicted, he could lead this race for a week now if all goes well. Take a look at that, though, Paul. He was looking the wrong way.
Well, you just caught up his teammate, and that's where the confusion came. You have to be alert all of the time as a professional bike rider, whether it's on a flat stage like this, when it's on a mounted descent, or whether you're just having a ride out to the start. And a little bit of homework being done here as well. Again, it's the first day out on the open road, Phil, and they're getting everything fine-tuned, even when it comes down to fine-tuning the shoes.
That was Biel Kadri there. Well, obviously we're all bored, so we're taking time out to do things at the back. This is a very routine way of riding the opening stage of the Tour de France in what is beautiful scenery here. We're only in 2 parts of Belgium, the province of Luxembourg and the province of Liège today, under the escort of the Radio Shack team. Anyway, don't forget to keep up with the Tour de France. You will need the most advanced digital experience of its kind. You go to NBCSports.com/TDF Live and get Tour de France Live. For a limited time, get Tour de France Live for $29.99. We gaze down on the River Meuse here in the city of Liège. We're now going clockwise right round till we come back 3 miles away for the finish in Seraing.
Chasing Netflix.
Blue skies above the breakaway on today's opening road race stage of the Tour de France. They've been away since the flag was pulled in, although, Paul, it looks as though the bunch are beginning to reel them in a little bit earlier than normal.
Yeah, well, I think everyone's concerned about how tactical and technical the running towards the finish line is going to be. It's a 2.5 kilometre or 1.5 mile climb up to the finish line, and all of the leaders, all of the main contenders will want to be in the first positions because a lot of them fear that there will be time gaps at the end of today's stage, and they'll want to start that final climb of the day in a good position.
Jens Voigt putting in a lot of work at the front here for his Radio Shack Nissan team. The near 41-year-old continues to apply pressure. They got off to a great start. It's their man Fabian Cancellara who is in yellow. 5 times now he's won the opening time trial of the Tour de France, and every time in a different country. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is quite amazing. Started back in Liège in 2004. He was the winner in 2007, 09, 2010, and of course this year. And every time the Tour de France has been outside of the country of France, which really is quite an amazing statistic.
And there he is, peeping into our picture. For the 22nd time he wears a leader's maillot jaune. A little bit of a check of the machinery being carried just behind the race. A little bit of a check here for the breakaway as well. As this is Nicolas Edé from Cofidis. New colours for Cofidis for the Tour de France. And the first time this man has ever been in the Tour de France. Nicolas Edé is a rookie in the Tour, and I should imagine celebrating his breakaway. He was the first, officially he won the first climb.
I think it was Michael Morkov actually over the top of the first climb. He's his second year as a professional, and in the prologue he finished 177th. But he did ride the Critérium du Dauphiné just recently, and as always Cofidis are a very aggressive team. They try and get in the breakaways to get themselves as much as possible. Anyway, this is Radio Shack Nissan. They are doing most of the placemaking. There's the green jersey, and as you can see, all the yellow helmets on the riders from Team Sky. They did the best as a team in the individual prologue time trial yesterday. And of course Bradley Wiggins was the best of the rest because he finished second on the day. There's number 1, Cadel Evans, and he's sitting a little bit too far back for my liking, Phil. I'm sure when we get closer to the finish he'll be much further up towards the front, but he's right behind his teammate there, number 4, Philippe Gilbert.
Yes, always near a teammate. I wonder if they'll go 1-2 as a team this year. They went 1-2 on the opening stage as rivals last year. Cadel Evans chasing Gilbert to the line, not quite catching up with him. Which started a great 3 weeks for Evans because he never came out of the top 3 in the race until he finally won it in Paris 3 weeks later. Well, for Cancellara, he's never happy. Then when he's in that maillot jaune, he's hoping by today he'll still be in it tonight. The big thing about the Tour de France these days, Paul, is they don't give you those time bonuses at the finish or during the sprint points. So it is literally real time. As long as he finishes with the group alongside the winner, he'll maintain his lead.
And that's the important thing. It's only a 7-second advantage, but with a man like Cancellara who can ride very well on the flat stages, he doesn't have to worry about the sprinters pegging back 10 seconds every day and 3 or 4 seconds in the time bonus sprints. He can sit comfortably at the front end of the main field all of the time and quite possibly keep that yellow jersey for the first week of this race.
The green jersey also making its appearance today, although it's being worn by Bradley Wiggins because Bradley finished second in the prologue time trial yesterday. Obviously the first man would have worn it, but yellow takes priority. But for the advertising revenue, you've got to wear it with the second place rider on the classification. There is an exception to that rule, isn't there, Paul?
Yeah, there is. In fact, if you're the national champion of your country, you can opt to wear your national champion's jersey on that occasion. I'm a little bit concerned here because AG2R have got the map out. I don't think they're lost at the moment, but they're trying to figure out where's the next point to have a good attack.
Well, this is Maxime Bouet. He's in his 4th Tour de France for the AG2R team. I'm sure he knows his way around France, but I can't speak for Belgium at the moment, which is where we are, of course. And although the roads in the Ardennes regularly are infinitely better than the Flanders regions of Belgium, where they still retain cobblestones, they can be very tortuous and extremely steep, but short.
Well, these riders have been sharing the pacemaking all of the time, and they know very much that they're being pegged by the peloton. They're locked in now at 2.5 minutes. We'll start to see as we get closer to the finish the big acceleration starting to come. That's Bouet at the front with the brown shorts on, AG2R La Mondiale. He's at 31st. He's in 31 seconds behind. They've pretty much been sharing their workload. 19% of the pacemaking has been done by Urtasun. That's the rider in the orange jersey. De La Place of Française des Jeux, 18%. So pretty much evenly spaced, I would say, for all of these riders in the 6-man leading group.
Yeah, they're all rotating, you see, and we calculate the percentage work done at the time he's actually on the front of that group of riders, and it looks as though they're all doing their share together right now, as these boys are as well. Now is your chance to build your very own elite cycling team for the most epic race of the year. It's the Discover Card Fantasy Cycling Challenge. Just go to nbcsports.com/challenge to register now and select your team to compete for daily stage prizes and the grand prize, a Cervelo R5 or S5 bike. The Discover Card Fantasy Cycling Challenge is presented by Discover Card. It pays to switch, it pays to discover. So as we look out now across this beautiful area of Belgium, we're heading towards Seraing today. This man's had his 2 days in the Tour. Flat tyre yesterday with a piece of glass in it, and then he hits the road today. Tony Martin certainly knows he's in the Tour de France.
Yeah, a lot of bad luck for that man over the first 2 days, but if you get all of your bad luck put behind you in the first 48 hours, then you can enjoy the next 4 Sundays, because we're still 4 Sundays from the finish.
Let's hope so. And the sun is still with us. Although rain was forecast, it does not seem to have come yet. There's no change in the overall. If it were to stop right now, we'd have Mikhail Morkov in the lead, who's in that leading breakaway. Brad Wiggins, take the day off, Brad. There's a lot more to come.
Welcome aboard.
Now you'll know when to stop. The all-new Nissan Altima with Easy Fill Tire Alert. It's our most innovative Altima ever.
Now, tomorrow morning, the Tour de France continues on the NBC Sports Network at 8 Eastern. And another big day as we go home to France. And tune in nightly at 8 Eastern for Tour de France Prime Time on the NBC Sports Network. So tonight we say goodbye to Belgium as the clouds are looking a little bit threatening at the moment. Tony Martin has just been back to the cars. He's had a little bit of a problem. I don't think he's suffering from his injuries, but he did fall soon after the start. This is a little bit of a look back. Well, these are the breakaways at the moment out in front. Now we can show you. Moments ago, Tony was back at the team car having a big conversation here. And I think if you notice there, the mechanic is just checking out his thigh, you see. I think he's gone down with a real heavy thump on that left side of his body. He's got a scar on his elbow and a cut on his left knee. Anyway, he's rejoined the peloton. That's all that matters at the moment. These are the 6 leaders, and we've got 2 Tour first-timers in the breakaway. Nicolas Ede of the Cofidis team and Mikhail Morkov, also he's of the Saxo Bank squad. Ex-track rider at a very elite level, won the silver medalist in the Olympic Games in 2008. Now a concentrated roadman. We're now moving towards that 3rd, 4th category climb, which is the Côte de Liège, and that's to come now. Only under the new rules, which started last year, 1 point only. Only the first rider on these climbs gets a single point towards the King of the Mountains competition. So the categorized climbs, the 4s are the lowest or the shallowest climbs you'll get in the Tour de France. We go to outsized category, which we call HC or category. The green S there, that is the sprint point of the day. New rules again, which started last year. The only point along the course where the sprinters will try to snatch the maximum points, 20 for the first man, and there's no more till the finishing line. A rider like Mark Cavendish would be expected to go for those. We'll see. This is the peloton all together. Almost casual pacemaking being done at the front by Radio Shack, reflecting on the time nonetheless. 2 3/4 there. A boy in white, TJ Van Garderen. He's enjoying his life right now, the man from Boulder.
Phenomenal performance by the young rider there. There he is, 23 years of age, TJ Van Garderen. 4th, looking for 10 seconds on Fabian Cancellara. That is a serious reference, Phil, when you think of how powerful, how much of a specialist Fabian Cancellara is. To be only 10 seconds adrift. I think we're going to talk a lot about TJ Van Garderen in the future. This year again, I think in the Tour de France, it'll be a learning year for him as he rides alongside the defending champion, Cadel Evans.
Now, once again, the picture breakup, as you're going to follow us for the next 3 weeks on television. You might see a little bit of that. It's nothing we can do about it. It's the links up to the helicopters in live pictures. The whole team here, the last man of the team, is indeed Fabian Cancellara on Radio Shack.
Well, that little glimpse there of the Church of Saint-André indicates that we are in the town of Liège, and that is the start of the climb of Liège with the 6 leaders. And again, Phil, I must have to say, with the little bit of picture breakup we get, we do have to explain that this is not a stadium, this is not a basketball arena, this is a rolling road. The pictures are being brought from cameras moving along all of the time throughout the whole of this 2,500-mile route.
Côte de Liège, it's 2.1 kilometers, about 1.6 miles up the climb today. It takes us up to just over 1,600 feet above sea level. We're approaching nearly the highest point in Belgium at 527 meters. The crowds are enormous. We expect that. This is Belgium's sport. Little less so here in the French-speaking district of Belgium. It's a little bit more the Flemish-speaking area, but then there's proof how popular it is.
Well, I'd just like to add there, Phil, a nice little anecdote. The highest point in Belgium is actually called the Barraque de Friture, a country which is known for its chips or its French fries. I have to say, I think that's rather appropriate. And funnily enough, when they go through the Barraque Friture, that's where the feeding station is. I wonder if they'll get chips and mayonnaise today.
Yes, the local language for chips or French fries is friture or frites. So, yeah, well, we'll see.
And you probably won't believe me if I tell you this, but in fact, the Barraque Friture in the winter is actually the Belgian ski resort. They have an average of 20 days skiing throughout the season. And I was talking to one of our Belgian technicians. He told me if you're really lucky, the downhill ski slope can take you a full 40 seconds.
So we continue on the climb. The 2 climbers so far, Michael Moorkopf won the first climb, Uderzan won the second, so they're equal first in the race for the first wearer of the polka dot jersey. We might see a different rider try to go here. There are 5 climbs on course today, including the winner of the stage, because that's also a 4th category climb. So we'll see which one gets to wear it tomorrow. It's a great honor. Everybody wants to wear a leader's jersey. Yesterday, if you're watching our program, you would have seen how delighted TJ Van Garderen was. You almost couldn't stop him running up onto the podium to pull on that white jersey as the best young rider.
Well, 1.4 kilometers to the top, that's a mile. It's not much of a climb, but for somebody, it's going to be important. Yes, Moorkopf got the first climb of the day. Uderzan got the second. There are a couple more climbs, and of course, let's not forget there are points on the finishing line for the climb up to the line at the Côte de Seraing after the 123-mile stage today.
Well, that's Moorkopf on the front at the moment. Saxo Bank, again, altering the colours for the Tour de France. Moving up is Uderzan, so the 2 winners of the 2 climbs so far, shoulder to shoulder on the front. We'll see if they really do take it on in the sprint here. I just caught sight of the Union flag on the right of the road as well. There's a lot of international support here now, almost as many as the Belgians and the French.
Well, in the orange jersey there, that's the rider who got their last climb, the Côte de Francorchamps, that's Uderzan. Right on his wheel in the blue and yellow jersey, the slightly newer colours of Team Saxo Bank, Tinkoff Bank, 175. That's Michael Moorkopf, a great track cyclist, and he's positioned himself right onto the wheel of the Spanish rider in the orange jersey there, Phil, because I think he wants that next point.
Well, none of these riders in the breakaway, as we look at the peloton, have won a stage of the Tour de France. None has ever worn a leader's jersey. But tonight, that could all change for one of them at least. Little idea to show you what 192 cyclists look like when they're all packed together. This is what we call the peloton. The big bunch of riders all together at the moment, riding at just on 3 minutes behind these 6 men.
Yeah, these 6 men opening up the roads of the Tour de France here this afternoon. That's Maxime Bouet in the front, but that's the man who's the most popular along the race route today, Philippe Gilbert. All of the signs and all of the cheers for the Belgian road race champion. They're queuing up, Phil, basically because they need to get around the corner and there's not enough room.
That's absolutely right, and we've got a little move off the front. This is Maxime Bouet, who's decided as he can't sprint, he's hit them hard to try and get a point at the top and put him equal first in the King of the Mountains.
Yeah, it was Anthony Delaplace who got across there, but in fact the man who's taking up the pace, the chasing in the blue and yellow jersey, that is Michael Moorkopf, and he's just trying to make sure he judges his catch just to perfection. There's only 1 point for the first rider to go over the top of this climb, but look at the orange rider there, that's Uderzan. He is also looking for the point. It's going to be a very well-challenged sprint.
It is, and Delaplace has gone clear, but Moorkopf is creeping up on him, and he's taking within Uderzan. the first two winners, and I think he has gone a little bit too early here. Anthony Delaplace in his second Tour de France.
Yeah, but look at Morkov there, Phil. I think he's in a good position. He's actually being able to come up to the back wheel of the French rider. He looks over his shoulder. He's waiting to see when the challenge is going to come. He's riding like the track rider that he is. He's waiting to hear the whistle of the tyres with the acceleration once it starts. The sprint point is just up ahead there. Look at Morkov in the blue and yellow jersey. He's waiting and waiting to start his sprint. I think he's got this one in the bag.
He's gone to the front. That's the only downside. He's riding like a track cyclist he once was, an Olympic silver medalist and a world champion silver medalist on the track. He's standing there watching and waiting for the move from Urtazan. Well, he's staked his claim for the polka dot jersey. Now they've opened up here. And first of all, we've got the Cofidis rider in the red of Ede taking on Morkov. Well, we don't normally see this sprinting for a single point in the King of the Mountain, but then the track man prevails and Morkov takes it on the line.
Well, I'm not sure. I think Urtasun, he thinks he got it there, or maybe he just came up a little bit too slowly. But, you know, Morkov, for me, Phil, this is Morkov in the blue and yellow here. He was in complete control of the situation. He was looking over his shoulder, waiting for somebody to make the move, and he controlled everything. So if he did get that single point there, he deserved it.
He's got two now. In the old days, you would have got 3 points for winning that, and second or third would have got 2 and 1 point. But now the rule prevails, winner only on the shallow fourth category climbs. So that's the situation. The gap is just on 3 minutes as they go over the top of that climb. The back of the peloton as they climb up here, the Côte de Libano just gone over the top. Mikhail Morkov in a very close sprint with Urtazan. The breakaway of 6 is clear. They are sharing the points at the moment out in the Belgian Ardennes climbs. Only 1 point for the top of the climb. And if Morkov is confirmed as the winner of the climb, then it means he will have 2 to Urtazan's 1.
Well, the race organisation over the last couple of years, they've changed the points attributions in a couple of the competitions to try and make sure that it's the real climbers, the real specialists in the big high mountains win the King of the Mountains classification. It's a competition that's been around for many, many years, and it's one of those competitions that's written a lot of the legendary stories of the Tour de France.
Little smile on the face of the race leader, Fabian Cancellara. Happy with the result yesterday, happy with the way the race is going like now, because his team is all around him, just closing down the gap. At one time, the breakaway had nearly 5 minutes. They're actually starting to nibble up a little bit, but it's early days yet, still a long way to go.
Yes, I think that's really, Phil, because the main field, that they knew once they started to accelerate, they saw how quickly. In fact, Michael Morkov there has been given that point, so he's got 2 points to Urtasun's 1. But there are still 2 more climbs to go. The Côte de Barvaux at 86 miles into the race. And, of course, the final climb of the day, Côte de Seraing.
The Belgian flag couldn't fly much higher. We're just about 1,600 feet above sea level at the moment, where that Belgian flag is flying. And today we'll pass over the highest point in Belgium, the Baraque du Friture, as Paul has told me, which is, as you know, anybody who goes to Belgium, friture is chips.
French fries with mayonnaise, but that won't be the order of the day for the men in the main field here. Jaroslav Popovic is the man on the front end of this line of Radio Shack Nissan riders. Behind him it's Jens Voigt, then it's Aymar Zubeldia a little bit further back. There you've got the Fabian Cancellara. Sitting on Fabian Cancellara's wheel, by the way, rather interesting to note, is Frank Schleck. And a lot of the riders in the main field are telling me that Frank Schleck is riding very, very well.
So 6 riders in the lead, and after 3 climbs of the day, we've got 3 points shared with Michael Morkov, the Danish former track silver medalist at Beijing in the Olympic Games, where they were beaten, by the way, by Great Britain, and Urtazan in second place there from Euskadi. Morkov won't be in the Olympic Games in London for Denmark because he's now turning all of his concentration to road cycling.
Well, the main field just about to reach the top of that climb there, Phil, the Côte de Liège, and clock is ticking. The race radio is telling us it's 3.5 minutes, but once we go over the top, we'll get a much better chance to have an exact time difference between the leading group of 6 and the main field. I reckon it's around about the 3 minutes and 35 seconds, which race radio is currently telling us.
Flag of Spain and the flag of provincial flag of Luxembourg here. We're going into the province of Luxembourg at the moment. The Belgian flag flies proudly as well. We're only in 2 provinces here in Belgium, which is Luxembourg and Liège today, as we stay in this country throughout the day. the sun is shining brightly where we're sat commentating to it in Seraing, at the top of the hill. And a hand is up here by Morkov. He wants to speak to his team car, probably wants a drink or something like that. And to hear music in his ears that he is now leading in the King of the Mountains competition. It's his first Tour de France. Wouldn't it be unbelievable if tonight he pulls on the King of the Mountains polka dot leaders jersey? A huge honour, especially for Denmark. There's the peloton as we just look over the top. Our cameras have moved to the peloton. But I can tell you that he's dropped back to talk to his team car, the wonders of television, as we sit at the front of the peloton now with all of the boys in black of Radio Shack. Keeping Cancellara seems to be enjoying a long joke here. He's been smiling for about 8 minutes as he sits there with smiles all over his face. His team trying to protect him from what little wind there is out there at the moment. Bradley Wiggins in the green jersey off to the right of the picture. He wears that. It's on loan at the moment from Fabian Cancellara. This is a look back at the sprint we've just seen, and indeed it was a good one, but you can't beat a track man if you give him the head so near the line. Welcome back. The long countryside, the open road of the Belgian Ardennes here now as we race through the province of Luxembourg. The London Olympics are coming to NBC and the NBC Sports Network. Coverage begins July 25th on the NBC Sports Network, leading up to the opening ceremonies July 27th on NBC. The peloton now speeding across open roads, but losing a little bit of ground. Now, speaking of the Olympic Games, one man who has been selected is TJ Van Garderen. He now wears the white jersey as the first leader of the best rookie here. Let's go to Craig Hummer.
TJ, you're looking resplendent in white, knowing, as you have said yourself, that the ultimate goal is Cadel in yellow. How much are you going to cherish today's stage being out in this color?
It's going to be awesome. I mean, I got into the jersey, or into the Mountains jersey one day last year, and it was just incredible. And yeah, I think, yeah, this is going to be another incredible experience.
It's a short list of Americans who've been able to wear white. Have you put that into perspective at all? I mean, if you called home, spoke to your wife, I mean, what have your friends said?
Oh, everyone's just, everyone's thrilled for me. I mean, yeah, my wife was so proud, and, you know, my family was just texting me, emailing me, calling me, and it was, yeah, it was just a proud moment.
Today's stage may not on paper suit you in terms of the finish, but is there a chance that if you get Cadel within that 3-kilometer zone and you're in the right position, will you try those last 3K to defend this jersey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going to sit up in the end. I mean, I'll be there for Cadel, and I'll help out the team as much as I can, and then just try to stay ahead of gaps.
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, TJ Van Garderen in his second Tour de France. He briefly wore the King of the Mountains jersey last year, and now he's wearing the white jersey. As we're looking at the peloton, he's safely in the middle. You'll pick him out probably before I do in that white jersey on Team BMC. As it's still Jens Voigt setting the pace. The only other person, by the way, is Greg LeMond to wear the white jersey as the best rookie in the past. Back in 2001, before you all write and tell me I'm wrong, Christian Vande Velde did lead with the white jersey, but there was no jersey was awarded on that occasion. So there we are, the peloton still going on. It looks as though we're passing a little area where the fairground is being set up for later. It's one of the guest areas for the Tour de France as we pass through. So looking here as we come through towards the feeding station now, and the peloton in no hurry here, Paul. We sweep, well, we've come down very slightly, 347, 346. So they're riding more or less on the same speed as the breakaway just now. The leaders are on the feed zone, which is slightly downhill, and we're heading for, of course, the sprint, which is the green symbol, and the sprint. Well, they're not going to be backed by the sprint, are they? So I don't think Mark Cavendish is going to be too keen on worrying about this one.
I just have a gut feeling that Mark Cavendish is not going to make a go for the green jersey competition this year, Phil. I don't think he wants to use too much of his energies leading up to London and his attempt to try and get himself a gold medal in the Olympic Games.
Well, there's the crowd as they all queue up for fast food as they race through the area of the feeding station here. 3:44 is still the gap or so, 98 kilos. We're inside 60 miles to go to the finish. Still a lot of racing to do. Generally downhill now as we drop away from the highest point on the course today. Then we continue the undulations as we head down towards the finish in Seraing. Morkov at the moment with 2 wins on 2 of the 3 climbs, puts him 2 points to 1 against Urtasun. So he's in with a chance of pulling on the polka dot jersey later on today.
But once we start to get away, I think, from this high spot of the Barraque de Frétur, we're going to start to move down slowly towards the outskirts of Liège and the city of Seraing. That's when I think we'll start to see the pace picking up. We'll start to see the organisation of the big contenders. The one thing that is battering all of these riders today, though, Phil, is every time we move out of the forest, there's a very strong crosswind. And that's what I think is going to be the predominant factor of the first 4 or 5 days of racing here. Because when you race across the northern part of, the southern part of Belgium, the northern part of France, the most difficult thing about the races is the wind that can split the field in a section of 20 or 30 kilometers.
Absolutely, and I know Paul Schoen's waiting for the riders to arrive at Boulogne-sur-Mer, because as they race down the coast of northern France, that's when the wind gets in amongst the riders and causes absolute havoc, right?
Yep, that's absolutely the case, and it can rip, and you can see how the field is starting to stretch out, and one or two teams are very, very clever and adept at using crosswinds to their advantage. In the past, we've seen that sort of tactic being adopted by Radio Shack Nissan. They know exactly, and it's because of the team management who take meticulous points of studying the race routes, studying the maps, and in this day and age, with so much telemetry and the ability to get to online mapping and even almost satellite imagery, they can try and plan their strategies to a certain kilometre in the road.
Back with the leaders now. These are the 4 riders, still working pretty well together as they get in amongst the trees.
Well, as we look at the 6 leaders here, Phil, well, the wind at the moment is coming from the left-hand side of the riders, and so what they do is they move and they protect each other. And the idea is to ride at the front and just for a little bit of time, and then you're protecting your mates in the back. And the idea is that you slip around. It's almost like a chain, and you you ride about 45 degrees to the rider in front of you, and you really save an awful lot of your energy to do that.
And that's why a lot of riders try to stay at the front of the peloton as well, to keep away from the wind picking them off the back. At the moment, it's a block headwind here, so a change of direction could alter all of those tactics.
Well, this is Maxime Montfort. We talked about Belgian riders. He's at home, and he's from this part of the world, and he's stopping at the side of the road because his family are there. Yep. This is a tradition that happens very, very often in the Tour de France. You only get a very good chance of doing this. You may only get it once in your career, but for Maxime Montfort, he's enjoyed that, to stop and say hello to the family at the side of the road.
Yes, I was chuckling there, Paul, because the policeman almost swallowed his whistle as he tried to push him off again, because the Belgians are such great enthusiasts.
Well, the crowds have certainly turned out here, and now we'll start to see the race starting in earnest once we've been through the feeding zone. And you can see his teammates just backed off a fraction there. Just coming up on the outside, very, very obvious in his lime green shoes, Marcus Burkhardt, a teammate of Cadel Evans. He did an awful lot of work last year for Cadel Evans, keeping up at the front end of the main field. Just a little bit further back as well, Bernie Eisel, he's in this race for Team Sky Pro Cycling. He's there to look after the interests of Mark Cavendish in the flat stages.
That's correct. He's about the only man that Mark has got around him, because the whole team is dedicated to guiding Bradley Wiggins, hopefully for him, to victory in the Tour de France. We'll see. As the peloton themselves have now filled up with fuel, now it's time to get on with the racing. This is an area of Belgium where the forests take over as we head towards Seraing, where 1/3 is housing, 1/3 is industry, the other 1/3 is forest. 22nd on the NBC Sports Network, as we now look here at the finishing line. As you can see, it started to rain slightly on course. We're at the finish. It is a beautiful day, and you can see the damp roads here. Looking at the peloton now as they continue along, and There'll be a little concern with the few drops of rain. I don't think it'll be there for a long time, though, as they continue on, because the sun is out at the finishing line, everybody enjoying themselves in what is quite warm sunshine. Let's hope that they race towards the sun. They've still got 2 more climbs to go. And more importantly, they've got the first big sprint of the day, which gives whoever wins it 20 points in the chase for the green jersey competition won last year by Mark Cavendish. But to me, it looks like we're getting hit by rather a heavy shower now as we've moved back up to the leaders. The crowd waving the flags. Others are putting up the umbrellas because they're a little bit higher up than we are. They're slowly coming down off about 1,500 feet towards sea level. We don't quite get to sea level today, except as we run around the River Meuse in Seraing as we head up towards the finish. And this breakaway has been away all day today. Still has a big lead over the field, but I think for me about now it will have reached its maximum, I would think. So as we look at the peloton continuing here now, let's go and one man that I think could win today is Edvald Boysenhagen, and maybe Steve Perino does as well. Here he is talking with him.
Edvald very close to the white jersey yesterday. TJ is saying he is all about Cadel. In your case, your aspirations for the white jersey?
My main job is to work for Bradley, but today I have my own opportunity to go for the sprint, and if I manage to get a second into him, then I have the white jersey, and that would be really great. But that's not a goal for me. It's I want to try to go for the victory, but it's a hard finish, so it's going to be tough.
With the white jersey in mind, where do you think you're going to get the most pressure today?
I'm not sure. I doesn't really think about the white jersey. It's just a bonus if I could get it, but I doesn't think about it.
All right, good luck to you. Thanks.
Yes, because his job is here to help Bradley Wiggins get the yellow jersey. Let's have a look back to last year in the heavy rain here in Liège as Boysenhagen screams through for Sky and gets the win. And a delighted win it was too for him. He is a real talent, this boy. We're going to talk about him winning big races for quite a few years to come. Then we raced into Pinerolo in Italy, and this was a real tortuous descent where riders disappeared off course into car parks. But this man didn't, and again, Boysenhagen won here in Pinerolo. He couldn't believe it. Norway had a couple of riders in the event with their Tor Hushoff, and they were winning stages all over the place. Now back to 2012. The breakaway, they just skirted the edge of that shower, I think. Now what's happened to Philippe Gilbert as he goes back looking for his team car? It could be he's gone back for a raincoat, Paul. Philippe Gilbert dropped back. It's only a shower because the breakaway is almost out of it now, and they're only 4 minutes up the road.
Well, looking out from the commentary position here, it's absolutely glorious on the finishing line, which is this one of those summer showers in the Ardennes, I would have to say. And as Philippe Gilbert there, Phil, I think rather than taking on board a jacket, he just wanted a quick chat with Jean Lalonde, the team manager of Team BMC Racing, to find out just exactly how things were going to unfold. I would think he's feeling very confident because he has got form. When you finish in the top 10 of the prologue, as he did yesterday, and you're a sprinter, it's an indication that the form has started to come back. He was the most dominant rider on the international circuit last year, and I think all of a sudden something has clicked, and he's come back to that form of last year.
Well, the Tour de France starting in Belgium, that should be the biggest incentive he would have required, I would think, to do well. Then he'll also fall into the role of a team helper for Cadel Evans. We're over midway through now. We've gone through the knife and fork, the feeding station, as we head towards the first sprint, and the only sprint of the day before the finish. Breakaway still well clear. 6 places up the road, and I'm pretty sure they'll stay away for the sprint now, so the big points have gone on the day. If Mark Cavendish is chasing green, this will be the first indication, because he will try to be best of the rest, which would be 7th. If he doesn't go for it, then we have our answer, don't we?
We certainly do, but the question is, who are the other riders who will go for that? Because Matthew Goss of Orica Green Edge has said he wants to try and win himself the green jersey in this year's Tour de France. And of course, the young kid on the block, 22 years of age, Peter Sagan, he will be hungry to get himself some early points.
Absolutely, and he's got to be a favourite for the finish today. He's won 13 races this year. With a bit of a hand up here from one of the Euskadi riders, looks like Mikel Astalosa. I think he might have a flat tire the way he's rapidly come out of that peloton.
Well, you just noticed the small town of Manet there. It was a central part, very strategic and important part of the Battle of the Ardennes, and there were some incredible battles here during the Christmas of 1944, and almost every one of the buildings was absolutely demolished.
Well, these boys working out on how they're going to demolish 6 riders in the lead, 3 minutes 50, so it has started to come down from just over 4 minutes. I think at this stage of the race they won't want it to run too far now away from them, although there's no real concern here just at the moment. I think Radio Shack would know, Paul, wouldn't they, that they know there's a lot of guys want to win this stage, so they're not going to do all the chasing themselves.
And that's how it comes down to being that game of poker that we always talk about, because you've got to do enough work yourselves, but you've got to leave an incentive for some of the other teams to do a little bit of the pacemaking as well, so that you're not the ones that do all of the work on a day on the Tour de France, as we're seeing this afternoon. So what they will try and do, they'll try and keep that gap at around about 4 minutes, then they'll reduce it to 2, and then after that what they will expect is some of the teams of the sprinters to come forward and then start doing the pace as well.
So 55 miles or 88 kilometers to go, and the gap now is 3 minutes and 44 seconds. So 3 3¾ minutes there, Paul, as we pass the church here of Maurice et Campagnon. See here, the peloton, the gap is still well under control, I think, here as we course through a rather damp at the moment Belgian Ardennes. Well, we're looking at the breakaway here, the red jersey of Nicolas Hédet in the Cofidis colours there, making his way to the front to do his share of the pacemaking in this 6-man breakaway. The gap is still there. The rain hopefully is now going to go away. It's staying alongside the forest, largely over the peloton, as we can see. We're racing back into the sun with this breakaway of 6 riders. The best placed man at the start of the day was Mikhail Morkov. He started the day 24 seconds off the yellow jersey, and there he is there. He's up in the front group at the moment. Now, they are 2 kilometers, about 1.2 miles from the sprint now, the only sprint during the race. We have another one at the finish, of course, and that's where we're headed for, the green S on the map here. There's 20 points for the man that wins here as they race, and the first 15 riders score points. So it's important if you've got ambitions on the green jersey, and in fairness, I don't think any of the front 6 have, but Mark Cavendish may have, who was the winner of this competition last year. So this is going to be interesting to see. Well, we're looking at the grimace here on the face. I can never distinguish over the years whether he's smiling or grimacing, but it is Jens Voigt, and his job today is to keep his team leader, Fabian Cancellara, in touch with the breakaway, which is approximately 3 minutes 50 seconds in front.
Nobody will ever know if that's a smile or a grimace, but one thing they will know, if you're sitting behind Jens Voigt, Phil, you will know that he is the king of pain. He can dish it out like anybody. He enjoys hurting people in the main field and doing the job at hand.
Well, we're inside 2 kilometers to the green jersey sprint now. There's only one under the new rules, which started last year. And then there's the one at the finish, of course, where the riders score points as well. This was how Mark Cavendish took himself to victory last year in the green jersey competition. We're wondering if he's going to bother this year or just go hunting for the stage wins, because he has the matter of the Olympic Games just a week after the Tour de France. 1 kilometer to the sprint. 6 riders in the lead. I don't think there's any long-term contenders, but there is an early grab for possible wearing of it for a couple of days, so they will sprint.
Well, watch out for the man in the blue and yellow, because he's a good sprinter.
So as they approach now, inside 1 kilometer to go for the first sprint of this year's Tour de France, the green jersey being worn on loan after yesterday's prologue by Bradley Wiggins, but of course it's owned by the winner of the stage yesterday, which is Cancellara. But there's 20 points up for grabs at this interim sprint today. And judging by the way that Bouet at the back here, just easing himself to the front, he might be thinking of having a go. There's the man they should worry about, Mikhail Markov, an ex-track rider and an ex-silver medalist in the Olympic Games.
And of course, one of those silver medals at the World Championships was in the Madison, and to get a medal in the Madison, which hails its name from Madison Square Gardens, when they used to do 6-day racing there, you have to be a very sharp sprinter.
Hence the reason why they call that event the American, because of where it started many, many years ago. There's also a prize, of course, small monetary prize for the first rider over the line. A little flick of the arm there, trying to tempt through Ertazon, but Ertazon's not having any of it, so they've left Morkov on the front here, knowing he's probably the fastest sprinter. At the back here, also a good sprinter is Johan Jean. He is in the green jersey, and he's going to have a go for it, I think.
Well, you can see this is almost a can-mouse tactics.
Goes.
Yeah, good call on that one, Phil. He's made the first move, but watch for the reaction coming from Morkov. But look at the man coming out here, because Ede has jumped out of the pack.
Well, I've never seen Ede race before. This is his first Tour de France. He may have gone just a little bit early. Jean is trying, but Ertazan is showing he can sprint. He's beaten, though, by Johan Jean, so Europcar get the 20 points. And the crowd enjoying a preview of the sprint, which will come down the road at Seraing, although I doubt it'll be amongst these 6 riders.
I have to say, my man, my tip there, Michael Morkov, did very well. He got 6 out of 6.
Well, he's clearly decided to concentrate on taking the early lead in the King of the Mountains. I can't blame him for that. A polka dot jersey awaits the leader tonight. There was no mountains in yesterday's flat stage, the prologue time trial. So it looks as though we've got around 350 the gap at the moment to the peloton, and this is what is interesting now, and we're asking the question, is Mark Cavendish going to put in a sprint because he is the defender of the green jersey, won for the first time by a British rider in the Tour de France last year.
Well, Phil, we've said this all year. This is a complicated year for any of the top riders in professional cycling, because you've got the Tour de France, yes, the biggest event that everybody wants to ride well in, but when you've got the Olympic Games in the same year as the Tour de France, and you're from Great Britain, it makes it a much more complicated call. And I think Mark Cavendish, being the only British track rider from the Olympic Games in Beijing not to get a medal, he really dearly wants to get a medal this year in London.
Well, let's have a look. Change of teams at the front. The Lotto Belisard team have come to the front, which means that Andre Greipel, the big sprinter, is interested. The world champion Mark Cavendish in the white jersey, centre off to the right, just bobbing in out. There he is, just tucked into the right. Well, there's your answer, Paul. He's going to have a go.
Well, they're all up there, but there's still a lot of control going there from the riders from Lotto. They'll be looking after Andre Greipel. He's sitting in the middle there, waiting for the moment to move. Mark Renshaw is not too far off there, because Matty Goss is the man who's going to try and come up there from Orica Green Edge.
A bit of a banging of shoulders there too as Matty Goss tries to get through, but in the fourth wheel there, watch out, because I think that Mark Cavendish is interested possibly in testing his sprint finish here.
Well, that's Andre Greipel in the black and white jersey at the front there, but still sitting, still a long way to go. That's Matty Goss in the green and white jersey in about 4th position there. Right behind him, Mark Renshaw in the orange jersey. Then Cavendish with the yellow helmet. Well, he might have a little go.
Boysenhagen's behind Cavendish. Cavendish is moving up slightly. He always times his effort very late. That's where he's got the advantage. This incredible fast kick as he comes in sight of the line. Greipel is the man they've set it up for as he goes for the line now. But here comes Cavendish. Is this a rehearsal for the finish today as Mark Cavendish goes, and on the line his arch rival Greipel gets it, and Cavendish has to play second fiddle. Remember that Matt Goss may have got it on the line there, not Greipel. Matt Goss, the Orica Green Edge. Well, that is a reversal of the Olympic pre-road race rehearsal last year when it was Cavendish who beat Goss.
Well, that's Greipel on the left-hand side of the road. They're trying to fight his way up, but it's Matty Goss on the right-hand side who eases up and looks back at Mark Cavendish there. The Australian gets the first little victory there. Mark Renshaw also up there in 3rd place. The big sprinters all coming to the fore.
Well, Mark Cavendish looking first to his right to see who beat him, and then to his left to see where Greipel was. Sandwich between his 2 arch rivals in the sprint, possibly for the Olympic road race.
And his 2 ex-teammates.
And his 2 ex-teammates, because the disbandment last year of Team HTC High Road, everybody spread out onto the new teams around the world. Greipel had been there a bit earlier than Goss.
Well, there's an indication Mark Cavendish is taking a first serious interest in the points classification, so we'll see a little bit later on whether or not he can drag his body up this 2.5-kilometre climb down towards the finish. In fact, Phil, because of that acceleration in the main field, look what it's done to the time gap, because now all of a sudden the 6-man leading group from 4 minutes lead have come down to 2:38.
And the first time that Mark Cavendish has been to the front of the peloton, albeit briefly there, as he came over the line. Well, Matthew Goss, they'll be pleased that, because I really feel both Goss and Greipel, they've got their declared intentions. They are racing for the green jersey. Whether it was just a sort of little test for Mark Cavendish or whether it was a long-term intention, we still don't really know.
I think we'll follow that story. That's Brett Lancaster on the right-hand side in the Orica Green Edge, just popping out of the picture. He was the man who finished in the top 10 in the prologue yesterday. There's Peter Sagan in the middle. His jersey slightly different than it was in the early part of this season, because he's just won himself the Slovakian national title.
Yes, and Peter Sagan, because of his brute strength, he's got a real chance up the climb to the finish today. It is a long climb, 2.4 kilometres, about 1.5 miles up to the finish line today. Chance for the peloton to regroup. They're going downhill now, so they're happy to just freewheel at the moment of around about 40 miles an hour as they run away from the sprint point there. We'll have to take a break now, but this is how it all unfolded. And Matthew Goss, Mark Renshaw was in the mix again in that orange jersey off to the right. But in the end, Goss, Cavendish and Greipel. Advantage. Buy America's Natural Gas Alliance. Smarter power today. And introducing the Runner by Clean Bottle, the only running holder with a special pocket for your iPod or smartphone. Available exclusively online at cleanbottle.com. Well, as we wander around the Ardennes Forest here, let's have a look at that sprint as it was won by Jean, and he got the 20 points, and this was the first 6 riders in the breakaway, of course. But then was the big race, the sprinters really sharpening up their legs, perhaps for the finish later today. Goss getting the better of Cavendish, Greipel and Renshaw. 4 of the top sprinters in the race, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. The points on the right are what they get towards that green jersey competition. 3 minutes 13, the peloton, as 1 or 2 pulling off on the road, and decency forbids me to tell you why, as we leave them behind just for the moment before they'll rejoin the back of the race. By the way, if you wonder how they do that and catch up, they do have words with the riders in the bunch. Say, look, just keep it cool for a minute, it's time out time, and they will do that. 3 minutes 21 the gap just now. We've gone back up to the leaders here, just ferreting around in his back pocket is Anthony Delaplace, as he now takes on Fuda Maxime Boyer. Well, it doesn't look like it on our pictures, but in fact it is starting to rain quite heavy at the moment, as the clouds are quite heavy. Up at the finishing line, which is looking okay, but not like it was about half an hour ago, I have to be honest there. There's the names of the 6 leaders. 24 seconds as we look here at the Cofidis man in his first Tour de France, Nicolas Ede. He will have been told to eat plenty and often. Now, let's have a look at our Road ID Challenge fan predictions and see who you thought will win today's stage. Well, I'm with you. Peter Sagan, 22%. Mark Cavendish, 13%. Bit difficult up the hill, maybe. Gilbert, only 10%. I'm surprised. 9% for Fabian Cancellara. A good move. I don't think he'll do it. Head on over to roadid.com/ride to make your prediction for tomorrow's stage winner. You'll be entered to win daily prizes and a 2013 Trek Madone. There he is, Fabian Cancellara. You know, he has won these road race stages before, and he has slipped away to do it on the line. Well, a little bit of dampness in the air, Paul. Looking out of our commentary box window, it's not looking quite as sunbathing weather that it was about half an hour ago either. But the peloton, they're getting a few drops on them now.
Yaroslav Popovic is the man on the front here for Radio Shack Nissan, doing the pacemaking, followed there by Haimar Zubeldia. And I think an interesting addition to the Tour de France, and this innovation, I should say, this year is the teams who lead the team classification being asked by the race organisation to wear yellow helmets. We've gone through three fourth category climbs on the day. The feeding station has been left behind us, the sprint point. There's one more climb on the day before the final climb up to Seraing, where we will see whether or not Michael Morkov will get himself the extra point he needs to walk away with the King of the Mountains classification lead tonight.
Yes, and that little climb up towards the finish starts across cobblestones before it gets on to the climb up towards the finishing line. And many of you will have watched the one-day classic from Liège-Bastogne to Liège. It's a circular race out to the Bastogne and back to Liège. It finishes on a hill, and the team director is saying that it's a different hill here in Liège. They're saying it is as difficult to finish today as on the finishing hill of Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a very difficult climb, especially the end of it. And always the first day of the Tour de France is a very nervous day, the first day out on the open roads at any stage, because all of these riders want to try and get the first victory under their belt, and a lot of riders are still fresh, and all kinds of risks can be taken by somebody trying to grab a stage victory. And so you've got to be very, very attentive.
We're just looking at the boys from Radio Shack Nissan Trek now. They've picked up the tempo here. It's time to start thinking about it. And so with some 45 miles, 72 kilometers left to race, we should see the seconds come down. Having said that, they've immediately gone up by a single second, but that's unfortunate for the commentator. They've now decided it cannot go any further ahead. The road itself will stay full of undulations through the forest. I'm not sure what he said there. Happy with what's happening, I think. 3:47 the gap, 72 kilometers left to go. And there's the flatlands ahead in the Ardennes. Peloton, as they've been all day today under the escort of Radio Shack. That's the way it is when you've got the race leader on your team.
Especially when you've got a race leader, Phil, that you believe can hold the yellow jersey for at least the first week of this race and get you a lot of good publicity.
Speeding towards the front of the peloton, but not quite getting to the front, is the yellow jersey, Fabian Cancellara. He's just keeping an eye on his teammates, informing them he's feeling okay. I think he really is feeling okay. His morale is sky high after his terrific performance yesterday. And it's only a couple of months since his accident that broke his collarbone. So the peloton, some idea of how fast these boys are going at the moment as our helicopter sends the grass high into the sky. The peloton heading today to Seraing. So, Team Radio Shack, let's have a look first at the Cadillac Tour leaders here. This is how it stands. Radio Shack have got the yellow with Fabian Cancellara, also qualifies for the green as the winner yesterday. No award yesterday for the King of the Mountains polka dot jersey. TJ Van Garderen wears today the white jersey, is the best young rider of the Tour, and he did a terrific ride too to finish the prologue in 4th place. The clouds are rolling around the Ardennes. They're coming and they're going with their rain showers, but the riders are basically dry at the moment because they're back in sunshine. These are the 6 leaders. They've been out in front since the start of the day today, literally from 0 kilometers. As we now continue to course across this is the town of Sois, I think, at the moment, where we're making a right turn in the bottom here. Beautiful scenery here, so different to the Flanders area, which is a different character, different part of Belgium, different language there is spoken. Crowds here enjoying the sight of the peloton as well, who are hovering. They're still inside that 4 minutes. They seem to have decided they don't want to allow those leaders any more than 4 minutes, so they're racing to contain them rather than catch them at this part of the race. Well, the situation at the moment, Team Radio Shack Nissan have turned around the troubles of the season yesterday, because Fabian Cancellara and Johan Brunel said when they lost him with a broken collarbone back in the Tour of Flanders, he knew he'd lost a strong man. The team hasn't had a great season, but it seems to be coming good at the moment. That's all Team Radio Shack on the front at the moment. So, as Team Radio Shack do their work on the front of the peloton for Fabian Cancellara, here's more on Radio Shack Nissan Trek. nasty crash. I don't think Brakovic is going to continue here. Not too sure what happened there. And that could be Levi Leipheimer. There was this massive pile-up of riders, and I think indeed Chris Horner is also down in there.
Yeah, for sure. But I finished? Yes.
Ooh, there's a crash. There's a massive pile-up. That's Andreas Kloden, who's down, the best placed on Radio Shack.
When I go back to last year, we had so much bad luck. And after the tour, it turns back to our side. So we won Utah, we won Colorado, we won still a lot of races. And I still believe that one day it will turn, and why not the tour?
It's amazing. 2 teams getting to be one, and the best riders in the world in one team.
Devastating news out of Team Radio Shack. Andy Schleck has been ruled out of the Tour de France with a broken pelvis.
There's stressful times, months of work down the drain.
I would have loved having Andy here, but we still have a couple of things in mind.
When you come in the Tour de France, you want Johan in the car. You know what he's done and what he's brought to the sport, and I know the kind of motivation I have when Johan's in the car.
I can guarantee you with the team that we have, we are not going to make it too easy for the others.
This man had a tough start to the season. He's had to fight his way back up to the top of the sport.
Fabian Cancellara is on a ride. Best time at halfway. Cancellara, is it going to be his 5th opening day in the Tour de France? It looks like it.
It's a great day for me, for my family, and for sure a great opening for the team.
Fabian Fabulous Cancellara. Well, let's have a full look at the lineup. There they are in yellow. Andreas Kloden, not literally in yellow, of course. That is Fabian Cancellara. But Kloden is the man now who seems to be the designated team leader to ride well. He's been a podium finisher before in the Tour de France. The woes aren't completely over because Johan Brunel, the team manager, is not on the Tour de France. He voluntarily has pulled off the Tour because of likely proceedings by the United States Anti-Drug Agency about charges from the past of drug trafficking, etc. And that will go on for a little while yet. So, back to the leaders on Team Radio Shack, still looking after their man in yellow for a while, and as long as they can, because it could be for as long as the next 5 or 6 days, if all goes well. The roads are always difficult in the Tour de France, but the high mountains aren't with us until stage 7. There's Chris Horner. We heard from him in the black, dead centre left now, and Chris is enjoying the tour. He got a late call-up, in fact, a little bit of miscommunication with Johan Brunel, who thought he had a very severe back injury, and he didn't. And he was missed off the long list for the Tour, but he got back in when Andy Schleck broke his pelvis in the Dauphiné race just before this Tour started. There's the workload. It's a sort of work in parenthesis, because 91% of the team has to do that work at the front because they've got the leader. The others are just watching and waiting to take over from them as the race nears the finish. And this is a very difficult finish today. It could be tremendous racing over the last 2 kilometres. And if you misjudge it, you won't be contesting the sprint finish either. We've gone back up to the leaders now, as we are no longer at the back of the peloton now, as we move back to the rear of the peloton. This is Sandy Cassar, who's won a couple of stages of the Tour. Looks quite content with his race so far today. Raindrops on the lens, so they're coming and going. Sandy Cassar sat at the back. This isn't his sort of stage, so he'll just try and finish in the peloton. The work is now getting on with it. This is Jens Voigt stepping on the gas. They've knocked off just about 35 seconds of that lead in the last few kilometres. I think we can announce the chase has begun, can we?
It has certainly started now. You look at the face of Jens Voigt. He is now dishing out the pain this afternoon. He's starting to eat into the advantage of those 6 leaders. They want to get this race back together before they get to the outskirts of Seraing.
Jens Voigt here, what a workhorse this man really is. His enthusiasm just never dampens at all for a Tour de France. He loves it, as Voigt is now once again the workhorse for the team. He's riding his 15th Tour de France, by the way. Crossed the line 67th last year. 3 minutes 20 is what the blackboard is telling us. It's always slightly out with our GPS, but these boys now are getting on with the job in hand. What they do best, chase down the leaders. The sun is coming and going, and it's come right now, and it's shining on the 6 leaders of today's opening road race stage of the Tour de France. They've been away since it all began today. As we pass through some of the beauty of the Belgian Ardennes, the gap is coming down now. The chase is on. How close they want to close it down, we'll wait and see. 2 minutes 50 is the gap just at the moment. Just 38 miles left to run. And we have 2 small climbs, including the finish. So don't forget, throughout the 2012 Tour, Strava will be introducing you to certain sections of each stage race with the Strava segment of the day. These might be sections of road, trail, climbs, or interesting bits of the parkour. Today, the Route de l'Abbaye del Def is our Stage 1 Strava segment of the day, a gentle climb, 60 kilometres from the finish. Visit Strava.com to see each segment's profile, including elevation, average grade, and which local riders are on top of the leaderboard with the fastest time. Looking at 6 riders in the lead. The crowds, wherever they can be, are big today here in Belgium. It's not a highly populated area of this country, but they're here to see the Tour de France en passant. They haven't missed a beat, these 6 riders, Paul. There's no passengers. They're just getting on with the job as professional cyclists and hope that the peloton makes a mistake today.
Well, the peloton won't make a mistake today, so sorry, Phil, because they very rarely do, and I think especially on the opening day of the Tour de France, they will be very alert and very attentive. There are great chances, especially, of course, for a man like Philippe Gilbert racing on home turf. He will want to do something. He comes from 25 kilometres or 15 miles away. We've got one more climb before the finishing climb of the day. Michael Morkov has got himself 2 points out on the course ahead of Pablo Urtasun. And if Michael Morkov can get himself 1 more point, then he will be the leader at the end of the day in the polka dot jersey race. Which he will certainly try to do. Now, I suspect that would be some sort of a maze if you were at ground level. It looks quite complicated, but another fine piece of work by the local artisans here as we see the Tour de France in Belgium. It is a very famous labyrinth of Bavot, actually. It was actually created in 1997. What a good job. And I don't know how you do that at ground level. You can't possibly know where you're going. The flags of Norway coupling up with the flags of Belgium here just now. So I think as we watch the breakaway here, we can just check in with our camera in Nissan's car.
Yes, 3 kilometers. 3 kilometers before the climb. 3 kilometers. It's 1.5 kilometers at 4%. And the gap is 2:45. 2:45.
Well, that was Ala Galapan's voice. Dirk de Mol was the driver in our picture. That was the Nissan in-car camera there, and advising the peloton, because they're behind the big pack, to the riders at the front, that they're just 3 kilometers. That's about 1.8 miles to the climb. These are the leaders who are climbing at the moment. This is the Côte de Bavot, 1.6 kilometers, just over a mile, and takes us up to about 700 meters above feet above sea level. Now, this is the interesting one, Paul. Watch out. Let's draw all your attentions to the rider who's gone. We haven't got any riders in the picture to draw your attention to at the moment. We will. Watch out anyway for the rider 175. It is Mikhail Morkov. He needs the win in his first Tour de France, and there he is, 175, to be in his first Tour de France to pull on a leader's jersey tonight. Well, the amazing thing is the race organisation changing the rules over the last couple of years to give the advantage to the big high mountains. There are more points available in the high mountains. Only a single point at the top of this climb, but that single point could give somebody the lead in the King of the Mountains polka dot jersey competition today, and that is what Michael Morkov, and in the breakaway group, he's the rider in the blue and yellow jersey. He will be trying to make sure that he can clinch that, but the man in the orange jersey leading, Pablo Urtasun, he also got a point for the second climb of the day, the Côte de Francorchamps. Well, these are the 6 riders now, just 3/10 of a mile from the summit. Mikhail Morkov, number 175. If he wins, will be the first-time leader of the King of the Mountains in this year's Tour de France. For him, first-time leader ever, because it's his first Tour de France. And as an ex-track rider, Paul, it's like asking a 100-metre runner to go out and win the New York Marathon.
It certainly is, but he's attentive. He's got himself in, I think he's got himself in the ideal position. He knows the man that he has to beat is the man in the orange jersey, Pablo Urtasun. He's sitting right on his wheel. He's waiting for that twitch, the start of the acceleration, and as soon as he senses that acceleration, he will try and go over the top of him immediately.
Now, if, by the way, Urtasun wins this, that means we'll have 2 leaders on 2 points. And I don't think they'll be in contention for the last climb of the day because it's the finish and the peloton should be here. Then it goes on count back as to who wins. They'll have won 2 each. Then it goes to the overall situation, which would swing it possibly to the Dane. Now they're off, and it's Urtasun who's got a good jump on the Dane here as they both disappeared out of sight. Our camera's not allowed to pass the other riders, so tune in tomorrow. We'll tell you who won the race because they've gone right round the corner into the distance. I'm hoping that somebody will tell us who won.
Well, the way he was positioned there, I have to have a guess that it was Michael Morkov. He was right on the shoulder of Urtasun all the time. They've gone hollowing up the road there, so we'll have to wait for the official race referees.
Nothing we could do about that because the cameras are not allowed to pass the rest of the breakaway in a sprint finish like that. But the man in the far distance is Morkov. He is the track rider and the sprinter, and Urtasun, I think, will have gone too soon. But we'll have to wait for the announcement on race radio as to who got that. It looks to me like it's Morkov.
Yeah, I think it will be Morkov. He was in an ideal position. He's got the sprint much better than I think. Oh, he knows he's got it. Well, there's confirmation there, Phil. He knows he's got it.
That's amazing.
And he knows he's going to have a leader's jersey at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice gesture too from Urtasun. Urtasun himself is riding his 2nd Tour de France. This man's in his first, and on his first road race day, he has got himself a leader's jersey on the podium tonight. He was trained by Heiko Salzwiedel, a former East German, who now trains the Russians, but he trained the Danish team to that silver medal in Beijing, which Morkov was part of in 2008. There's confirmation. 3 points, Paul, he's got now. He can't be beaten on the day. He's polka dot tomorrow.
Yep, and that will be a proud moment for him. And Heiko Salzwiedel, you were talking about there, originally a great coach from the Australian team before he moved across to train Great Britain on the track, and then moved across to train the Danes.
And everywhere he goes, the other countries wish they kept him because he's always produced that. Until he got the silver medal last year for the Danes, there was no medals for Denmark on the track at the Olympic Games. And now he's doing the same, it appears, for the Russian boys on the track as well. So watch out in London, that's all I can say.
Yep, I tell you what, the track racing in London will be superb. In fact, the Olympic Games I'm looking forward to very much, although it comes pretty soon off the back of the end of the Tour de France, straight onto the train and across to London on Monday morning.
But at least we haven't got to worry about riding. That's all that matters to us, Paul. Well, the nonchalant riding style belying how fast these boys are riding now by Cloden on the front. 57 kilometres to go. The gap is at 2:19. They are slowly nibbling away at the breakaway as they want to do it. They don't want to bring them back too quickly.
Well, again, it's Popovic, Voigt. It's the dynamic duo as we see the little bit of a queue and traffic jam at the back end of the pack.
Well, I don't think it was a problem. 2:22 is the official time gap at the moment as they go over the top of that climb. The last climb out on course today. The next climb will be the man who carries off the first prize of the day. Not necessarily the next yellow jersey. It depends where Cancellara finishes on that climb. All riders together would be timed in at the same time, which would leave Fabian in the yellow jersey. And now what's happened here? This looks like we're up with the leader because that is Johan Gen, who's had a bike change in the breakaway. At least he's got a little bit of time on his side. The breakaway might need his strength there, so they may not put the pressure on to get rid of him. They're only just up the road. That was a premeditated, very quick change we've just caught there. Rode his first Tour de France last year. Quickly gets into the river. So as his job now is to get back and help those boys as quickly as possible. There's the leaders as they're wondering where the man in green has gone, but he'll be back very shortly, I would suspect. They are still racing towards the finish. They are still ahead, and we have our first lead of the Tour today. It's Michael Morkov. Stage 1 of the Tour de France, day 2. This is the story so far. Originally, the race delayed by a protest. It hadn't started racing, I hasten to add, and it was a very peaceful protest, not against the race of the Tour de France. 6 riders break away right from the gun. Tony Martin, Robbie Hunter involved in a small crash, and then the sprint was won by Johan Gien and Matthew Goss, and Mikhail Morkov now leads the King of the Mountains. So that's the situation so far as the Tour de France continues on its way today. And there's always that worry that the rain will come, and we really hope it doesn't come today because, Paul, at the moment out the window, it is still a little bit cloudy, but we don't want rain on this final climb.
I don't think we want rain on the final climb or the approach to the final climb, because once you come into these cities in Europe, it's a very, very precarious. There's always a few cobblestones scattered around Belgium, and you put cobblestones and rain together, it's not a very good recipe.
No, 6 riders away, though. They got away on what we would refer to as the 0 kilometre. They are still clear. We mustn't say ill will of them and say they will get caught, because there's always the chance they will hold them off. 2 minutes 8 seconds, though, doesn't look too hopeful.
Well, normally 2 minutes can get wiped away in 20 kilometres or 12 miles. That's the recipe, and you can see now they're starting to clear the gap behind. They're getting the guest cars out because the referees understand how the race is going to evolve. And at 33 miles to go to the finish and 2 minutes advantage, they know how fast the peloton can start to close down this gap.
Well, just as we're looking at the leaders here, I think we can go back to the Nissan in-car camera and see what Dirk de Mol is saying. I think he's talking to Chris Horner.
Sneaker and Coca.
You want the Snicker, Chris? Yes.
Sneaker.
We have some in the fridge for you.
Yeah. Coca.
A little Coke.
Take that. Take the arm warmer.
Well, this is Chris taking off his arm warmers. That's interesting. Somebody just stopped suddenly in the peloton as well just there. It's funny, but the small things make your day on the Tour de France. A chocolate bar and a tin of cola, that's what you want. Now, we think this guy may have crashed. This is Matty Lloyd here, former King of the Mountains in the Giro d'Italia. The only Australian to win that title, by the way. He dropped off the back very suddenly. He may have touched the wheel. But anyway, he's okay, and he's going to get back in. Look at the length of the tail of the peloton, the arrowhead falling at the front. The pressure's going on. Matty Lloyd at the back, Paul, former King of the Mountains in the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago. And it looked as though he had a touch of wheels in the centre of the peloton there. But anyway, he's okay at the moment. It was a little bit of a problem for him. I think he might have just stopped. Anyway, he's back on his bike and he's back in the bunch.
Well, it's always a very, very nervous moment over the first week of the Tour de France, and especially the first day out on the open road. Everybody's nervous. Everybody wants to fight for their position, and you have a little bit of an incident like this. But Matty Lloyd, as you said, Phil, he's fighting his way back from a very, very nasty accident. Unfortunately, I don't think he actually touched the ground there. I think he just came to a dead halt. But he broke his shoulder and had spinal injuries after having a very nasty training crash way back in 2010, and most people thought that was the end of his career.
Yeah, well, let's hope he goes well. He's Lamprey were the only team that actually would take him back on board, and he's in the Tour de France. He's made the selection. He's one of a record number of Australians in this year's Tour. There are 12 of them here, spread across 7 of the World Tour teams. So that's the size of the popularity of the sport building in Australia. Right now, though, it is still the Radio Shack team on the front. Matthew Lloyd's Lamprey team have moved up in those pink jerseys. They have got a good sprinter in Alessandro Patacchi, but I can't believe they're expecting him to do well today.
Well, you never know with a man like Patacchi. He's the kind of rider who can really put in special performances. I think probably could be just that little bit too difficult, Phil, for some of the top sprinters, because it is a long climb at 2.5 kilometres or just 1.5 miles.
Might suit their team leader, Michele Scarponi, better on the approach to the finish today. Interesting finish for sure. Inside 2 minutes, a minute 49, they're coming back. Okay, as we continue to look at the breakaway, they're now scurrying here. There's a bit of a chase starting now, isn't there, by the boys at the back. As the riders continue now, located in the Belgian province of Luxembourg, the Church of Saint Martin is the largest church in the region. It dates back to the 11th century. The cathedral features a 14th century baptismal fountain and a Louis XIV era preaching pulpit. Its most unique features are the 16th and 17th century murals which adorn the walls. What a beautiful building. And that's where we are right now, racing through the province of Luxembourg, heading back into the province of Liège, which is where we end the day of racing again. And there we are. We've just seen the inside of that building. Now you can have a look at the outside, which is the marvels of television. And these are the peloton, very, very active now. A little bit more anxious as they want to get this breakaway back under control. They know the roads are difficult in the narrow twisting as they head in towards the finish today. And we're running into the last 30 miles of racing now. So they're saying the boys have had their day up front. It's now time to get on with finding out who is going to win the day stage and who will lead the Tour de France by the end of this day. Jens Voigt tapping out the rhythm at the front, always willing to work. This man is totally tireless, I'm convinced. As he continues at the front, his team, Andreas Kloden, has done a lot of work too behind today as well. As they continue, Team Sky, you may notice, have got the riders pretty close because they've always very easy to pick out today. Team Sky, they're the ones in the yellow racing helmets as the team leaders after yesterday's prologue time trial. From this low camera shot here, it looks as though these boys are moving pretty quickly as well out in front as they get low down in that streamline position. These incredible shots coming from a helicopter, believe it or not, which is pretty low on the ground right now. Heading now away from all of the climbs of the day, but there's no cessation of the undulations of the day as we race down towards the finish, and one fourth category climb up to the finishing line. But with Michael Morkov having won 3 of the 4 climbs so far, he will be the new leader and indeed the first leader of the King of the Mountains. Well, make sure to sign up for our Discover Card Fantasy Cycling Challenge at NBCSports.com/challenge for the chance to win the practice phase prize, a Cervelo R5 or an S5 bike. And if you win today's stage, you will receive a Physique Curve saddle. So just enjoy that competition. It proves very popular as the Tour de France rolls on. And remember, we're with you now every day. Will take us through to Paris at the end of the month of July. The peloton go on. They're angry now. We'll take a break. Rejoin us shortly.
Wouldn't it be cool?
Now take a look at the faces now as the riders from Radio Shack Nissan Trek are now talking about how they're working, how they can chase down this breakaway. Their tails are up now as they start to close it down. Let's have a look at the latest gap now. The leaders, 6 riders, and very shortly, there we are, 1 minute and 40 seconds. It was over 4.5 minutes at one stage, but now I think it's time to start shutting it down, as they all of Radio Shack know that all they have to do to keep Cancellara in yellow is make sure he finishes alongside the man who wins the stage today. He doesn't have to win the stage because it's all about time. Now, if it does all come together, well, for me, the man who might well do it is Philippe Gilbert, like he did a year ago. And because of that, we thought we'll tell you more about him. So he's the subject of our first endurance athlete profile.
In 2011, for me, it was a great moment when I won in Liège, because it's a race in my town, and I always see this race passing in front of my house. So for me, it was very special.
Gilbert read the move. Gilbert goes for gold here, and look at that.
I was always dreaming just maybe to start one day on this race and maybe to win it one day. But it took like 29 years, but I did it.
Philippe Gilbert has done the big 3 from Amstel Gold 8 days ago via Flèche-Wallonne to this wonderful race in Liège, and he lives just down the road. It was brilliant.
For the first stage and 2, I was very exciting because I looked at the circuit like 2 days before, and when I saw this, I say, it's my chance. I have to take it.
Gilbert kicks again. The champion of Belgium has got it. Now, can he hang on? Because this is desperate moments. Oh, it's going to hurt the legs, but that's a result for Philippe Gilbert. Win 14 for him.
For the media, it was the most important victory of my career because everybody saw me. It was the first big meeting with all the fans.
And so he's done two things today he's never done before. He won a stage, and he now wears the yellow jersey.
Stage 1 of the tour this season, it will be a nice finish for me. I think when I will see it in real, I will be happy.
He has to do a good ride today because tomorrow is an uphill finish, and if he can get himself to the top end of the leaderboard here this afternoon, he could be dreaming about a yellow jersey on his shoulders in Belgium. That's why he's riding like a man possessed.
Fourth best time for Philippe Gilbert.
It's my chance, and I will do everything for this.
Yes, that's our first endurance athlete profile, Philippe Gilbert. Last year he won 24 times. He's only won once this year, and that was his national championship a week before this Tour de France began. Clearly his form is coming. He's born in Verviers, Belgium, not too far away from Liège. And this is now his 6th Tour de France. He is going to be very special, and let's see what he can do, because I think once they bring back these 6, and I'm sure they will, then he'll be in a position to try and scamper up that last climb to the finish, which is 1.5 miles long. Well, Gilbert will be the man, Paul, if these boys get brought back, and at 1 minute 39 the advantage, chances are they will be then. Can Gilbert do what he did so often last year and win again?
Well, the funny thing is, last year, Phil, Philippe Gilbert and Cadel Evans were on separate teams, and on one of the first stages, it was first and second for for Gilbert and Cadel Evans. I have a feeling that what Cadel Evans will do here, I think he'll help his own teammate, because Cadel knows how to work for somebody else, and I think he'll try, because we're in Belgium, because we're not far away from Philippe Gilbert's home, I think Cadel Evans will play the teammate today and try and put Philippe Gilbert in a position to try and win.
That's a very good theory, and we'll see if that does unfold, because as Paul said, on the climb last year, Les Alouettes it was called, Gilbert followed the lead out from Cancellara and left him in his wake and sped away, and it was Cadel Evans who chased him down but didn't catch him. But now they're on the same team, as Paul Sherwin says, and it could be an interesting tactic, because it would be a chance, wouldn't it, for Cadel Evans to pay off his teammate, knowing he needs his help later in the race.
Well, that's what it's all about. You can't win a race like the Tour de France if you don't have a strong, solid team behind you. And what better way to earn the respect of the team by helping one of your teammates to get a stage victory early on in the Tour?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's still in the future, of course. Although the future is not little more than an hour of cycling away right now to the finishing line. 1:41 is the gap. These boys have done all that could be expected of them. I bet they weren't betting on staying away for the whole 200 kilometres of the day's racing, 123 miles, but at the moment they've been in the lead ever since this stage started.
Yeah, 45 kilometres to go, 28 miles of racing, and that will be covered in around about the 1 hour, as you said, Phil. But people always say to me, why do these guys get into the breakaway and go clear off the front end of the main field when they know they're going to get caught? Well, the reason is, first of all, they've gained an awful lot of television exposure for their team sponsors, but there's always the possibility that the main field in the peloton makes a mistake, and sometimes the breakaway does survive. It might be only once out of 10, but if you're going to get that one victory, you might as well go for it.
Yeah, of course, it's given Mikhail Morkov, the Dane, his first ever Tour de France, his first ever lead, because tonight he'll pull on the polka dot jersey as King of the Mountains, and that's a real reason to get in the breakaway, and tomorrow will be a proud day for Denmark as well. Haven't got too many of those on the record books. So, as the peloton go through, the camera foreshortens the gaps. Riders dodging in and out of their team cars. They've been back for a drink or something of that nature and then rejoin the breakaway. We're getting closer to the finish. Life is going to get very tough very soon. See you in a moment. Welcome back as we're with the leaders here, just staring right into the eyes there of Anthony Delaplace, who's been in this six-man breakaway since the race started today, but it's not good news. 1 minute 28 is the gap now. They'll stick at it as long as they can, but the peloton is closing in. There's a lovely shot of the peloton, which I'm sure the boys upstairs are enjoying as well. So let's go now to Bob, Scott and Liam to tell us what's on the prime time show tonight.
Phil, thanks so much as we wait and see if Fabian Cancellara can hang on to the yellow jersey. the race with the green jersey already taking a little bit of shape. Only one intermediate sprint stage so far in the 2012 Tour de France. Do you feel like we've learned a lot from it, though?
I think the top sprinters of today's race are really taking this sprint seriously, and obviously they've looked at the profile and they don't think that the finishing kilometers suit them very well, so they're really putting a lot of stock into these points in the mediary sprints. Also, I think Mark Cavendish, despite what he's been saying, does have an interest in the green jersey.
What's your take on that?
Oh, I have to agree with that. You never know what's going to happen in the Tour de France. You don't want to eliminate yourself from a competition just because one of your teammates might be going for the yellow jersey, as Sky is with Bradley Wiggins. So Mark Cavendish going for those intermediate points, that was a very prudent move. He got beat by Matt Goss. The only man he truly fears is sprinters. That's a quote from Mark Cavendish directly. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think that Mark Cavendish is lying through his teeth when he says he's not going for the green jersey.
He's a competitive guy. He said he was going for Olympic gold. We'll see if he goes for green. We'll have plenty more interviews, insights, analysis, plus Ask Bobke, presented by Head Sweats. It's all coming at you tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Phil, Paul, back to you.
Hey, thanks, guys. Well, I love Bob Rowan. He never minces his words, does he? Any chance to prove me wrong? Hey, Bob, well, you could be right. Yes, Mark Cavendish has registered a chance there to retain his green jersey in that first sprint. He won't be happy, though. He got beaten, albeit for 7th place, by Matthew Goss. Don't forget, all that happens at 8 p.m. tonight, the primetime show, and totally different show to our live coverage, so enjoy that as well. Well, a beautiful picture of the peloton as they go down these narrow roads shrouded by the plane trees. Still thinking about it. The gap is approaching that 1 minute margin now, Paul, so very shortly they're going to see that favourite sight you always tell us about, the helicopter hovering over the break of 6.
Yeah, well, that gap, Phil, a minute and 16 seconds, it corresponds at about 40 kilometres an hour to the 1 kilometre mark. So at 25 miles an hour, we're looking at about 1,000 yards. And in a straight line, they should actually be able to see the tail lights of the cars that are following the breakaway.
Not much room amongst the riders in the middle there, as these riders know exactly where everybody is, even though they ride within a couple of inches of one another. This is the crowd now beneath clouds which are still showing possibilities of heavy rain, but still okay at the moment. We'll stay on the undulations until we get down to just outside of Seraing, where we get down to almost sea level, and then we've got this steep climb up to the finish. 75 seconds is now the gap.
Well, that's not very much at all, and they will be starting to lick their lips, the riders in the main field. But the question is, Phil, which guy is going to be the fastest man coming out of that gap? Because there's some very great sprinters, and I think one or two of the sprinters just may well be able to hang on here this afternoon. Don't discount a bloke by the name of Oscar Freire, 3 times champion of the world. It is definitely an Oscar Freire type finish. Over to the right-hand side, you've got the orange and blue jerseys of Team Rabobank. They'll be trying to protect Robert Hessing, but what about a man from Rabobank to come out of the main field and try and get himself the victory against Voigt? Yeah, he's waving to the 6 kids at home, I'd have to say.
Yes, the watching Daddy doing his career job here. Unfortunately for us all, it can't go on much longer as he hits 40 years of age, but he's still a terrific bike rider at this level, and at that age it is truly incredible. There's the whole peloton. Nobody, to our knowledge, is behind the race today, but there are still 6 in front. As we head towards those dark clouds, let's hope it doesn't dump on us with rain. We don't really want that happening today, as we watch Lawrence Tendam, 157 there, dodge around at the back of the field. He was the rider who had that big crash in the Alps a year ago, but he finished the race. France. Visit proform.com for more. By Physique, the #1 choice of the pro peloton. Visit physique.com to learn more. By Villiers Triestina, 106 years of bicycle making tradition and innovation, and sponsor of Team Lampre ISD. And by Competitive Cyclist. Get 20% off cycling apparel and accessories by visiting competitivecyclist.com/TDF and use the promo code TDF20. Back with the leaders now, and they really are scurrying to try and keep clear of a speeding peloton of 192 bike riders. There they are through the trees now. The gap is coming down. 74 seconds is what it is. Looking down at the peloton at the moment, and Paul, they are looking all together, but a lot of teams up there now.
Yeah, well, you can see now, Phil, they keep backing off and accelerating and backing off because it's like a cat playing with a mouse at the moment. They can catch that mouse anytime they want to, but they don't want to catch it too soon. Sitting in the middle there in that green, white and blue jersey is Stuart O'Grady. 16 participations in the Tour de France. He's the captain of Orica Green Edge here out on the open road. Only beaten, really, by an American, George Hincapie, who's riding in the Tour de France for the 17th time, which is an outright record for participations.
Now, Paul, the sprint finish here, you say they don't want to catch them too soon. I guess that's because there's always a ricochet of attacks once they do bring them back. It's a very difficult finish to predict this because it's not a sprinter's finish, but the sprinters strong can get up there. But there's a lot of guys like Alejandro Valverde who might think they can win on this climb.
I agree with you, absolutely. It's very unpredictable. One or two of the sprinters will try and hang on for as long as possible. Yes, Alejandro Valverde, but they've also got JJ Rojas, who's been the Spanish national champion. He's the kind of guy who can get up and climb like this. Oscar Freire, 3 times champion of the world. We're talking the Spanish riders at the moment, but I wouldn't decry a guy by the name of Tyler Farrar from the United States, because he can drag himself up the climbs too. So all of these guys will be doing whatever they can. It also falls into the abilities, I keep saying this name, Philippe Gilbert.
Absolutely.
I really believe that Philippe Gilbert, he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but he had a lot of pressure on his shoulders last year as the Belgian national road racing champion to go out and win the first stage, and he went out and did it. I think showing the ride that he did in the prologue time trial yesterday, Phil, indicates to me Gilbert is back on form as he was last year, and he will be looking for the win. The team will help him, I'm certain.
Well, just looking out, there wasn't the prettiest view around Belgium, I can assure you, but it does look as though they're getting all the stuff in there to build another chateau, so we may see that next year. Well, Paul, while you were talking, I just learned that the Tour of Italy for women is taking part at the moment. It's on stage 3, and great news for America, because Evelyn Stevens won the stage and is taken over the pink jersey of leader, and she's going to head up the American team for the Olympic Games as well. So looks like she's found her form at the right time. That's a great result so far.
Well, it's a complicated season for any professional cyclists, man or woman, this year, because of the fact that the Olympic Games falls just 1 week after the end of the Tour de France. A lot of riders, especially from Australia and Great Britain, decided in opting not to participate in the Tour de France because those riders are specialists on the track, and they didn't want the long miles of the Tour de France to deaden their legs going through to some of the track racing.
Not a good sign. The cows are sitting down. That's usually a sign of rain. Well, let's hope that it doesn't come for the next hour, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, round the back of a nice chateau here. 68 seconds is the gap now. I reckon we can fit in that commercial break before they bring them back. It'll take them a little while, but only a little while, I think, before this race comes together. As we look down on the shadows here, let me remind you, tomorrow morning the Tour de France continues on the NBC Sports Network, 8 Eastern. It's a sprinter's delight tomorrow as we go into France. Tune in nightly as well at 8 Eastern for the Tour de France prime time on the NBC Sports Network. With the leaders now, and the sun is out, 6 riders are in the lead, but very soon they are going to be spotted by the head of the peloton. The gap now is approaching 1 minute. In fact, as I speak, it's gone inside 58 seconds now. Well, these are the 6 leaders, but while we were away, Chris Horner was at the back of the race. Just see if we can show you that. Got one of the toy soldiers here cheering the boys on as the 6 leaders come through town. And here we are. This was moments ago. Chris Horner rejoining the field. He went back to his team car routine at this stage. He's had his chocolate bar for the day. He's had his can of cola. He's feeling great as he rejoins the riders. That was moments ago. Now we're back with the live pictures again of these 6 riders up front. So let's go back into the Nissan car now and check in with the Nissan car camera, see what they've got to say at the moment. That is Dirk de Bol. Is he about to speak?
Is that what you want, the Coca-Cola, Chris? I hit my knee. Yeah? That? No. That? No. That? Coca-Cola. More? I said I hit my knee. I see it. That's not going to be bad, mate. Don't think on it.
Dirk de Mol once won Paris-Roubaix, great cyclist in his own right, telling Chris Horner, said, I hurt my knee. He said, well, don't think about it. Just get back in the bike race, Chris. This is the Tour de France. And that was why we saw Chris Horner going back into the field, because that was all moments ago as the Tour de France gets that little bit closer to the finish with just 28 kilometres to go now, or 17.5 miles. 55 seconds, we're inside, it's coming down, but how long will they make these boys hang out to dry now? We're into the last 17 miles of the day, or 28 kilometres. The peloton are wall to wall on this road here, and that stops a lot of guys moving up from the back because they simply can't get through the pack. The strong men at this stage of the race should be in the front 40 or so riders.
You've got to take risks at this point. You've got to look for a little bit of pavement somewhere. You've got to look for some other way of moving around the riders in front to make sure that you get yourself into the first 15 to 20 positions. That's where you will be the safest. That's where you are least likely to have an accident. It doesn't necessarily mean there can't be an accident around the corner, because sometimes the accidents do happen at the front, but the best place to be is at the front, because that reduces the risk of an accident and losing time.
Well, there's our helicopter taking a photograph of a helicopter, because we've got a number of helicopters photographing the riders, and the lead helicopters drop back now to have a look at the peloton as well. They really do send us some marvellous images of the Tour de France, don't they, as we head now over the last serious rise of the day. Well, none count towards the King of the Mountains now, but very shortly we are going to speed downhill along the flats and then up the road to the finish.
Yep, and that's all what it's all about. There will be battling for position once we get into the suburbs. We're pretty much then in the suburbs of Liège, because there's not very much separating Liège from Seraing. Only 11 kilometres if we'd come straight down from the start line of Liège this morning to Seraing. Just 7 miles separating the two towns. But today we've made a 123-mile, 198-kilometre journey around Liège. Fabian Cancellara in the yellow jersey, comfortably in the top 15 to 20 places, surrounded by his merry men.
As he has been all day today, his team has done what's expected of them. Keep him in the right place, protect him, not see him in any difficulty whatsoever. As long as he finishes with the heads of the race today, he keeps his yellow jersey. Simple as that. We're having a look now at the Chateau de Plainevaux. And Paul Sherwin, no doubt, will tell me all about that. It looks as though it needs a bit of repair at the back.
Well, it is under repair at the moment, but in fact it stands on 10 hectares or 25 acres of land, originally built in the 12th century, and it's now being converted into 59 luxury apartments.
Oh dear, well I hope they leave those exterior walls. They were rather nice, weren't they?
They have to, it's a listed building.
Oh, and I thought there that in fact Mikkel Morkov almost hit that spectator, but all is well. It was just a little twitch as he continues on. We're coming down to the last 15 miles of the race now, and the gap is inside a minute. They still live in hope, these 6 boys, and why shouldn't they? They're in the lead in the Tour de France.
Emily's just starting out and on a budget, like a ramen noodle every night budget. She thought Allstate car insurance was out of her reach until she heard about the value plan. See how much you could save with Allstate. Are you in good hands?
The London Olympics are coming to NBC and the NBC Sports Network. Coverage will begin July 25th on the NBC Sports Network, leading up to the opening ceremonies July 27th on NBC. Well, we have 3 Americans in this race who will be going to London for the road races, and that's TJ Van Garderen, who wears white today as the best rookie, Tyler Farrar, and at last Chris Horner gets the nod and goes to an Olympic Games at 40 years of age. So well done to him, and we'll watch him on NBC in the Olympic period. 25 kilometres to go for the peloton. Peloton cruise through what is just over 15 miles from the finish. The leaders have gone through. The gap is 73 seconds. They're doing it again to them, Paul. They're hanging them out to dry.
Well, that's the way. It's like a good fisherman, isn't it, really? They leave the fish on the end of the line for a long time, just waiting for it to weaken, and then very, very easily they just reel it in. And that's exactly what the peloton are doing here this afternoon, waiting for the moment for that fish to be tired. They'll pull it back in just by natural evolution of the speed.
Well, had they turned right at that junction, they would have been straight into Liège, but we do a big loop here to bring them round to the entry into Seraing. There's the rest of the convoy behind the peloton. They've just made this sweeping left-hander. Change of wind direction now. It's blowing from the right, and this might, once the peloton starts to really move, will put them all into a long straight line.
Right, just a quarter glimpse up at the top left-hand side of the picture there, Phil. I could see that leading group of riders. The difference between these guys and the main field is not very much more than around about 1,000 yards or 1 kilometre the distance. Now, Team Sky starting to take the interest. They're looking after their man. There's Mark Cavendish, not far from the front. It's interesting to see there, just spotting again Sylvain Chavanel back at his normal jersey, having been the French national champion on the road for the last 12 months. He's in that pale blue and white jersey on the left.
And there's Peter Sagan. You can't see him amongst these boys in the lime green sleeves. His champion's jersey is almost the same as his team jersey. Sometimes difficult to pick him out, but he's right there at the front now. He has ambition to win today in his first tour, and he's got the qualifications too. He really does have the credentials for the finish. The six won't give up here. They're still helping each other here. One after another, they rush through into the lead as best they can.
It's always a question of they think in the back of their minds the peloton could make a mistake. There could be something delays the main field. The reaction comes too late and we could survive. And that's why they continue to work like this. That's why they continue to persevere in their attempt to stay off the front end of the pack.
This is Morkov, who has a polka dot jersey waiting for him at the finishing line tonight as a Danish leader of the King of the Mountains. Memory serves me right, I can only remember Kim Anderson wearing the polka dot jersey, but I'm sure, oh no, and Bjorn Rees, of course, who went on to win the Tour in 1996. Oh, there's been a crash on the road here. 67 seconds the gap, and it's a Rabobank round down on the right. This was at the back of the peloton.
So having a quick look, there's a number of riders gone down there as well from Movistar.
There was a Sky rider there who has also gone down, who has got up and started to ride away. There's a Movistar rider down there as well, and that is Vladimir Karpitz. Well, we're looking at the remnants of a crash which has just happened here. Sky rider was definitely involved. He's now kicking back in. It's not Wiggins and it is not Boysenhagen who has gone clear, and it looks okay. Just a little bit of a shunt at the back. It has left one rider from Rabobank down at the moment. We'll catch up on him when we can. This is Michael Rogers, the Aussie rider. That's a little bit more serious to catch Michael off the back because he's got a hard chase now.
Well, he's pretty much got ripped up as well. You can see his radios are popping out of his jersey there, and he went down very hard indeed. And Michael Rogers has got great form. He just recently finished second in the Criterium de Dauphiné. But because of that crash, you know, when a crash happens, Phil, you can hear the scream and the screech of metal behind you. It makes everybody very, very nervous indeed, and you can see that by the way that everyone's accelerating left and right in this peloton to get to the front because they know that's the safest place to be.
Yes, and this is now the most hazardous. Oh dear me, and the Euskadi ride just about squeezed in there as they came into the peloton at the back. As the spectators seeing the peloton being kept to one side of the highway, it must mean there's a turn coming up, I would think. These are the six leaders and still clear of the field and safely away from those shunts. Not too sure who the Rabobank rider was who crashed. Rogers certainly did. And they're saying that it was Samuel Sanchez, Luis Leon Sanchez, Paul, who was involved in that fall.
Well, there you can see there is the relationship. You can see all the cars queuing up behind that leading group of six. Right, there's another crash gone down now, Phil.
My goodness.
Everyone's getting very nervous because we're getting that little bit closer to the finish. These crashes happen because it's the first day. Guys are taking risks. They're trying to get up to the front. Then all of a sudden, boom, you go down. And that's fairly much halfway down the main field, that crash.
It's not even, it's almost at the front. The touch of wheels here as they go down right there. But yeah, it's about a third down the field. A massive stoppage. Fortunately, it was reasonably slow motion, even though we are showing it in slow motion as well. And they're just pulling the bikes out of the pack here. But again, it's riders falling. And you've got to be very, very careful now.
That's Maxime Montfort from Radio Shack who went down there on the right-hand side. He's just standing calmly at the side of the road. He knows that pretty much his stage is finished here this side. But look at this. Look at the pace now. The nervousness of all of these riders battling to stay at the front and out of danger.
Now, this is like a Belgian cycle race now, because when you race in Belgium, because of narrow roads, the approaches to finishing climbs, the strong men get to the front and they ride. And if you can't break in, you tend to fall off. This is when we've gone back here. This is the luckless Luis Leon Sanchez for the second year, the national time trial champion of Spain. He's been left in a wake today. We saw him win before. It looks like there might be that cameraman, you know, was a little bit too close here. because they all started dodging wheels. He should not have been there.
Well, what it was, the majority of the guys at the front end of the main field, they were able to get around him, but that causes a rippling effect through the main field, and that was definitely the origin of that crash. But look at the speed here. These guys are going absolutely ballistic right now. On the left-hand side, you've got the black and blue jerseys of Sky. Bradley Wiggins in the green jerseys in a great position up at the front, trying to keep himself out of danger. I can't quite spot the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara at the moment, but I wouldn't expect him to be too far away from the front.
Well, what is happening now is they are so nervous about the last climb up to the finish. They've got to establish their place at the front of the peloton before the climb begins. They're 11 miles from that climb, but they're all going faster and faster to try and hold front position. This is a very dangerous moment in the stage.
Well, I had noticed Peter Sagan and his teammates had managed to avoid most of that. He's in about 15th to 20th position. The lime green jerseys, Liquigas Cannondale, they are looking after the Slovakian champion, who many people believe has got the power and the acceleration to get out of the gap. There's the official 20-kilometre to go sign. That's 12 miles of racing, but these guys now, Phil, have got less than 30 seconds advantage, and still they continue.
They are 20 kilometres from the finish. They have been in the lead for 178 kilometres. They are still 30 seconds to the good.
Well, now a little bit of calm now. You can see all the red and white jerseys in the middle. That is Team Katusha. It's a Russian team, but they're looking after a Spanish rider this afternoon, Oscar Freire, a man who has had an enigmatic career, but he's a prolific winner. He's been 3 times the champion of the world in the professional road race, and today I think it's also his type of finish.
These riders now will be gripping these handlebars till they've got white knuckles at the front now as they try to keep themselves out of trouble. They stay extremely vigilant on these very narrow roads now. They're trying to, at the same time, position the men on their team that they feel can win at the end of the day. There's a lot of movement in this big pack right now.
There certainly is an awful lot of movement. David Moncoutier was the rider at the back with number 88. You'll see him ride at the back a lot during the stages of the Tour de France, but one day he will have written on his book, I want to go out on the attack, and he will look for that. I'm surprised to see him riding the Tour de France because very often he said he'd rather participate in the Tour of Spain, where he's won the King of the Mountains competition on 4 separate occasions.
Well, we're hearing from Radio Tour that Thomas Vauclair was also delayed in that crash, but he's okay. Rogers is still off the back. Sanchez is still chasing. Rojas of Alessandro Valverde's Movistar team also was involved in the first crash we saw. But now the cameras are all focused on the front here as the teams run. George Hincapie on the front, on the far right with BMC on his sleeves, as Vauclair's team has got themselves organised. The green boys on the right. All the teams trying to get the men positioned now. Radio Shack have relinquished the front now. They can't control it anymore.
This is what I was talking about before. When you get a crosswind, you very easily get tailed off the back in this formation, which is called an echelon, because you can't get any more shelter from the wind from the riders in front of you. The race is really on.
We are looking across the fields here at a splintered peloton caused by 2 falls all of a sudden. And the peloton at the front riding as fast as they can now to stop everybody rejoining as they race towards Seraing and the village uphill and the finishing line uphill. We are 10 miles from the start of the climb, or 16 kilometres.
Anyway, you can see now as we come to the racing part of the course here, we're in the racing time where nobody's going to sit up and wait for anybody who's got fallen off the back for the moment. This is too important for these guys now. As you can see, Team Sky have got complete control at the front end of the pack.
A huge field gradually coming together as these riders who are caught out are trying desperately to regroup here. You can see by the trees on the right, this wind is blowing now, and every time they change direction, it hits them from a different direction, and this makes it very difficult. Marcus Burkhardt of BMC is now driving on the front.
Well, not far away from the front is Cadel Evans. Whoops, watch a little bump in the road there, Marcus Burkhardt, because if you go down in first position, you'll take out about 30 men. Cadel Evans, and watch this, there was a bottle, in fact, and he just manages to correct it. You've got to be on the ball when you're a professional cyclist and you see something like that in the road. He looks back to make sure Cadel Evans is okay. Evans is in the top 10. I can see his red and black jersey there. He's being looked after by George Hincapie. The green jersey of Bradley Wiggins is never very far away. But where is the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara? I haven't seen him for a while.
No, Cancellara now will be watching just about everybody who moves at the moment. Well done Marcus Burkhardt there, because he took that missile off the road and probably saved somebody falling deeper in the peloton.
This is Bernie Eisel now in the crouched ski position on the front for Sky Pro Cycling. He will be making sure that he keeps the pace nice and high. Bradley Wiggins in the green jersey will hold his position. And these guys, Phil, have done a phenomenal job, because they are still surviving at 10 miles or 16 kilometres to go. 20 seconds probably correlates to around about 400 yards.
These speeds are about 3 brinks to the eye, I would think at the moment. I noticed that Bradley Wiggins at the front of that peloton, you can pick him out in the green jersey and the yellow helmet very easily. He is in a terrific position just now. And surely Wiggo isn't going to have a go up this finishing climb today.
Well, somebody said that to me before the start this morning, and I didn't believe it. But don't forget, on the opening day of the Tour of Romandy, he came out and won himself a bunch sprint because he just wanted to make a statement. And he has said, with less days racing in his legs than on previous occasions, he likes to come to every race that he participates in and race it. So why not?
Well, these are the 6 men. Leading them on is Maxime Bouet at the moment, and they are still clear, albeit only by 17 seconds. Now, 17 seconds is the gap. There is the river Maas or Meuse. It depends which language you speak, French or Dutch at the moment. They are 17 seconds to the go. We're going to take a break. The accidents have started now. Let's hope there are no more. We'll take a break, but when we come back, we'll take them to the finish in Seraing. Let's hope they all make it.
Everyone in this family...
They can survive.
Welcome back. It's showdown time now as we race to the finish of stage 1 of the Tour de France. Maxime Montfort, involved in the crash, has just got on the back of the race, but this is the front now as the Lotto team are trying to get Andre Greipel up the hill first. We've seen a lot of movement from Cadel Evans's BMC squad as well. Now we've got Astana driving on the front. Let's nip quickly back into the Nissan car and let's listen to the on-camera, see what the boys are saying. Dirk de Mol.
Hey boys, Maxime is almost back in the peloton, but Tony is behind. He had a puncture also, so try to have this organization there. Try to have the organization. We want to keep that jersey, yeah? Come on, hey boys.
Yes, well, Maxime is now back in the peloton, and in fact he's saying there, you want to keep that yellow jersey. To keep the yellow jersey for Cancellara today, he doesn't have to win. He has to finish in the group that gets the time of the winner, that's all. So that's all he'll concentrate on doing, I think. But the red, dark red jerseys down at the front, that's Team BMC. So, as we look here now, Orica Greenedge are taking control as well, so maybe they've got some faith in Matthew Goss, or maybe they might be looking for the possibility of somebody like Michael Albacini to win today.
Or Simon Gerrans, who knows? He could throw any number of possible victors out on a stage like today, because all you need is a little bit of a mistake by somebody and you can have a stage victory presented right in front of you. It's back down to 15 seconds again. It's 10.9 kilometres. That's 6-7 miles of racing left to go.
I'm just thinking, Paul, we're watching a sprint of some 10 kilometres long, 6 miles long. It's because they have to ride so fast to stop the peloton getting on terms. You've got to watch out. The yellow jersey now, Fabian Cancellara, is far right of the picture. He's about 4th or 5th in the line. He's got himself back into position exactly where he needs to be just now.
He's a fighter. He's a racer. He wants that yellow jersey. He wants to keep himself in contact, and he knows that there's a couple of nasty little roundabouts like this on the run in towards the finish. So that's why all of a sudden he's scuttled up the outside. But look how long that line is in the main field. If you're at the back, you've got an horrible elastic effect. You're yo-yoing off the back. You're going from 20 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour and slowing down again. It is an awful place to be. It's much smoother, the tempo, in the first 30 positions.
We are looking for the 10 kilometres to go banner now. Those 6 riders have been in the lead for 188 of the 198 kilometres. And we have an attack as we go under 10 kilometres to go. It is Nicolas Ede of Cofidis trying to lead this breakaway to the line. Don't look over your shoulder because they are right there. And it is the team of Orica Greenedge who are chasing them down.
Well, they're trying to set this up. They obviously believe in Matthew Goss here this afternoon. That's why you've got guys like Stuart O'Grady making this organisation. We've got the racer computer, Phil, telling us the gap now is down to 0 seconds. Well, I think I'd agree with that on this occasion.
Now, there's a little gap. Give them 1 second at the moment, but there they are. And there is the peloton. What a breakaway this has been. 189 kilometres in front. As Maxime Bouet says, you're not catching me. Not after all this effort. I'm going to go again.
Well, I'm not sure that was a very clever move, because he's just prolonging the agony. He will get caught before the end now, because when you see the organisation in a bunch like this, you know it's all over bar the shouting. He's just trying to keep his face on television a little bit longer for his family. And his family actually, his family-in-law actually hail from Marseille in the southern part of France, and I'm sure as cycling enthusiasts, they'll be all over this on a Sunday afternoon.
Well, he's a long way from home just now as he keeps up the resistance to take it through 9 kilometres to go. The Lotto Belisol team are the team which is closing it all down, and they are driving. They have a sprinter here in Andre Greipel. I'm not sure that Andre can get up this hill, though.
Well, we'll have to find out. We will see at the end of the day. In the second row there, you've still got Orica Greenedge, nice and organised. Stuart O'Grady, the second rider in that jersey. The jersey's very, very complicated. These are the riders from that breakaway early on. They're getting spat out of the back with absolutely no mercy at all. Nice place to watch the race there on the right-hand side if you've got a little bit of a jet ski.
8 kilometres to go, and the race is altogether 190 kilometres. That breakaway survived, 8 short of the finishing line. 5 miles.
Well, 5 miles. There's the yellow jersey, Fabian Cancellara on the defensive, and there's George Hincapie scuttling around Cadel Evans there, trying to move Cadel Evans a little bit closer up to the front. Bradley Wiggins in the green jersey is a little bit far back now. He will have to scuttle up and look for the help of his teammates to get himself into a good position for the start of the climb. Bear in mind, we come back across the River Meuse, and then we start to get through some very complicated little corners.
There is Cadel Evans. The field is now inside 5 miles from the finish. The breakaway is caught. We are all together, and it's now eyes down for the climb up to the finish in Seraing.
Yep. Well, there's the green jersey of Bradley Wiggins. He's looking to put himself to the front end of the main field, but still Lotto Belisol have got a very good controlled organisation there on the first 4 positions, but behind them is Orica Greenedge of Australia.
Is that Movistar coming up on the left-hand side of the road? It possibly is. Then they might be looking to get Alejandro Valverde into a springboard position. Bradley Wiggins is following that line through. He's in the green jersey left of our picture. There's no doubt that Bradley Wiggins is playing 2 cards here. 1, to keep out of trouble in case there's crashes, and 2, I really think he's looking to win this day.
Well, he may well have a try, but he's got to look at the speed these guys are going. Now, we're looking, Phil, now at speeds approaching 40 miles an hour on the flat. It's Lotto Belisol on the front. So these men are trying to sort this. Well, they can't be sorting it out for this man, because all of a sudden we've got Andre Greipel is doing the lead now. Now, who is he doing the lead out for? Is it Jürgen van der Poel? Because Greipel is going potty.
It might be for Jürgen Roelands, the rider who crashed in the Santos Tour Down Unders. Took a long time to recover, but he is now back on form, and it could be a good finish for him, or maybe even for Jürgen van den Broek. But anyway, it's not for Andre Greipel, that's for sure. As we keep them on the right route here, heading towards the climb in Seraing. They are really flying now, and for the riders at the back of the race now, there's no way they can come up into the front half of the peloton.
Inside of 6 kilometres to go, 4 miles to go. Now we come into the complicated part of this running towards the finish line, because there's a number of very, very difficult corners these riders will have to negotiate. If you touch your brakes, you'll disappear from the front end of this peloton this afternoon, and people like Fabian Cancellara do not want to do that.
And this is why now we know the field has been going so fast, because the problem here about Alexander Vinokurov, and that is not, he's got a flat back tyre, and that'll mean he'll drift home today. He's not going to catch up with these riders, because this is why they've gone so fast for the last 20 kilometres, Paul, because of the tortuous approach to the finish.
Well, I tell you what, you're going to see around about 5 or 6 corners in the next 1.5 miles of racing, and that's where you've got to be very, very careful. You've got to have nerves of steel. But for the moment, Orica Greenedge are doing a good job.
Just inside, 5 kilometers to go. Just inside 3 miles from the finish. The Belisol team, the Lotto Belisol team, it's a Belgian team trying to take the day. Other though, have other ideas here because there's a lot of big riders now, including Bradley Wiggins, who are in control. And boy, that roundabout is badly placed.
The white jersey there on the right-hand side with the yellow helmet, that's Edvald Boasson-Hagen. He's the champion of Norway. He's moving himself right up to the front. He's in a very good position. This is his kind of finish today, an uphill finish. He won like that in Liège in the early part of the Tour de France last year, and he may well be lining himself for a victory today.
It looks to me as though Adam Hansen has got himself up at the front in the Lotto team at the moment as they get onto these little slopes which will come thick and fast. We are closing in. The last 2.4 kilometers are all uphill to the finishing line. A tricky approach as well, little bit of a cobbled approach. These riders who have checked out the finish, and many of them have, will know just what is still to come.
Well, everyone looking over their shoulders. The reason they're doing that is they want to make sure that their teammates and their team leaders are well protected. I can still see the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara at 4 kilometers to go in an ideal position. He's probably in about 21st place.
4 kilometers to go, 1.6 kilometers to the start of the finishing climb. The red bands on the white jersey down there, that is Edvard Boasson-Hagen. The finish suits him. He has said, maybe for me today. The Lotto team feel it's for them. Stuart O'Grady, the first rider in the line who is not part of the team at the front, about 5th man down, is in a very, very strong position here as well.
Red and white jersey in about 8th, 9th position there. That's Oscar Freire. He's not got any teammates around him, but he's a wily character. He knows where to put himself. This is a very hard, fast run into the finish. And once we get to, there's a little move there. That's Cadel Evans with, again, George Hincapie moving up right around the outside. He's up to the wheel of Fabian Cancellara. He wants to stay at the front end of the pack here this afternoon.
Now, just look at the way Cadel Evans is being steered right to the front here with a great show of strength as Cadel moves up there, and Sagan has spotted Cadel Evans go through and has jumped onto his slipstream.
Said thank you very much. I'll have a free ride to the front end of the pack here this afternoon, but still Lotto Belisol in control at the front end of the peloton. Stuart O'Grady looking into our camera lens there, thinking about Matthew Goss here this afternoon. We're up to the final climb of the day, the Côte de Seraing, 2.4 kilometers. It starts to get very, very grippy here. The bottom part of the climb is the steepest part, but it goes all the way up to the finish line.
Well, Cadel Evans has spotted that Bradley Wiggins is interested in the win today. He can't afford to lose any time to him on a finishing climb like this. He's moving up to the front. Peter Sagan, he's looking for the victory at the moment, and they are all repositioning, and Edvard Boasson-Hagen also there. We're not talking about any real sprinters here apart from Sagan. It looks like it's going to be a different type of finish.
The man on the front is Stuart O'Grady, 16th participation in the Tour de France. Job done, swinging off. He leaves it up to the rest of the boys here this afternoon. This is Alvesini now, the Swiss rider on Orica Green Edge. They're trying to sort it all out. In 3rd position in that line is Matthew Goss. Behind him, another Australian in the red and black jersey. It's Cadel Evans. Is he going to look for the win?
Well, this is the climb now. We have started. It's all uphill to the finish now, and he who gets it right wins the day. The white jersey below us there. 2 white jerseys. One is Peter Sagan, the champion of of Slovakia, followed by Edvard Boasson-Hagen, the new champion of Norway. And still now and Cadel Evans has got himself into 3rd place.
Well, he's sitting there nice and comfortable. The cobblestones at the bottom, very, very difficult. You lose your impetus, you lose all kinds of momentum now as Cadel Evans takes over. Mark Cavendish is not going to win.
There's an attack, and that's Omega Quickstep who's launching. It looks like Chavanel. Sylvain Chavanel, 3rd yesterday in the prologue. That was his best ever prologue in a Tour de France. Is now stomping away. A Frenchman on a Belgian team trying to spoil it for the Belgians today. The legs are locking up, I think, Paul. It's a long, long way to the summit.
It's nice to be able to try and do it, but it's an awful long way to go up to the finish line. Even Peter Sagan here is struggling to get across the gap, looking over his shoulder for a little bit of help. They're stretching it out, though, because Chavanel will not give up.
There's an Orica Green Edge rider there. It's not Michael Alvesini, but I'm not too sure who it is. He's come up onto the back wheel here. As he comes up onto the back wheel, we've now seen, though, closing in. Jurgen van der Broek is getting up there as well for Lotto. Cancellora's holding position. Wiggins in the green is on the left. He's just taken the back wheel of Peter Sagan. Evans is in front of them both.
Well, they're all battling to stay in contact with the front end of the main field here this afternoon, but Cancellara has got the form because he's making a nasty little move here, but he's covered by Peter Sagan.
Well, I can tell you, privileged information, but the team manager, Dirk de Mol of Fabian Cancellara, has just told him in his ear that it's no one stronger than you, and he's made him attack.
Well, we're coming to the flatter part of the climb now at 1.3 kilometres to go. You know, Phil, it cast my mind back to Compiègne when he did exactly the same thing.
Indeed.
Had the yellow jersey on his shoulders and said, right, I'm off, mate, I'm out of this pack. There are not many men in the world could do this, but Fabian Cancellara could. The flick of the wrist says to Peter Sagan, come on, mate, give us a hand. Edward Bosenhagen is coming across there as well. He's looking to try and get himself a little bit of a stretch of an advantage in the best young riders competition.
Huge effort, but in Compiègne, of course, that was a flat finish. This is uphill, and it's still got a kilometre to go of climbing. This is a huge effort by the yellow jersey to steal seconds. He wants Sagan to come on through and do some work. Sagan won't come through. The hesitation will let Bosenhagen onto the back of the two of them.
That's Bosenhagen with the yellow helmet scrambling across this gap. Desperate moments, but they're opening up the gap. Fabian Cancellara has got that engine in his bike again, like he had a couple of years ago when they accused him of having a motor on his machine. So leaving it all now up to Cadel Evans to defend on the front in the red and black.
Cadel Evans, and on his back wheel is the Belgian who made a move and it failed, Jurgen van den Broek. The field on Massing at the back. Now Cancellara assessing. He's in a situation here now because Peter Sagan doesn't want to go round him. He wants to win the stage on his first Tour de France. And Cancellara says, well, I'm racing for time. He goes again. And Bosenhagen is the man in the perfect seat.
Well, I don't know. Fabian Cancellara knows it's all about time for him. If he can get another 5 or 10 seconds here this afternoon, he can hold this yellow jersey all the way down to the mountain. He'd like to win the stage if he could, but he's got two very, very fast sprinters on his wheel. He now has to race for time only, not even think about the stage victory.
Well, they can't hesitate much longer. Bosenhagen is under stress here. He's just about holding on. But the sprint is open by Fabian Cancellara as the attack comes from behind with Gilbert. And now it is Sagan going for the victory. Can Bosenhagen answer it? This is the first Tour de France for Peter Sagan. And Sagan is coming clear to get his first stage win at the first attempt. That is unbelievable. And win number 14 of the season for him. But having said Sagan as the winner, the man who scored most is Cancellara.
Cancellara is a man when it comes to a move like that. That was a very, very courageous move that he made, a strong move. And, you know, if those guys had participated with him in a little bit of the pacemaking, they might have opened up a huge gap. And I have a funny feeling, Phil, that Philippe Gilbert sneaked in for a 4th or 5th place finish there.
Yeah, we think he was 4th. Our cameras went with the winner, of course, but that was Gilbert. Came away from the peloton, beaten by a long attack there by a possessed Fabian Cancellara. All these riders now on this one climb will get separate times for the day. They will lose seconds on the race lead. So when we see the overall standings, we're going to see that Cancellara has slightly increased his overall lead in the Tour de France with a terrific show of strength. He was racing for time, Paul. He was committed. He had to keep going for it, even though he knew he couldn't win it.
Well, if you want a bit of panache, he's thrown some panache on the yellow jersey here this afternoon because he is a racer, and he raced all the way up to the line there. Yes, he wanted to win with the yellow jersey on his shoulders, but when you've got Peter Sagan and Edvald Bosenhagen on your back wheel, it's a very difficult situation to find yourself in. But he kept going, and he's opened up a little bit more of a gap at the top end of the leaderboard.
Well, there it is for you, Peter Sagan. He's 22.5 years of age, the champion of Slovakia, gets his 14th win of the season, but his first in his very first Tour de France.
Phil, we watched this young man in the Amgen Tour of California dominate stages 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the final stage around LA Live, but that was a phenomenal victory for him. 22 years of age, I can't believe it, and the gaps at this top of this climb are unbelievable.
A second per few meters by the look of it, because that's 2 minutes down. They were all together at the same. If that was Peter Vellerts, and I think it was, crossing the line, that's a serious time loss for him there of 2 minutes over the line. Yes, Liquid Gas, the boys in the blue and the lime green colours. Liquid Gas Cannondale team here, just seeing the result on the placards, saying, yes, we got the win. That's all that matters.
Well, they expected it to. I tell you what, that was a phenomenal move. Just look at the acceleration of this guy here. He really has got a real kick when it comes to the finish. Looks over his shoulder there for a little bit of confirmation. Gets himself the victory ahead of Cancellara. He needs to go to Cancellara very quickly after the finish line, Phil, and say to him, thank you very much, mate, because you've given me my first stage victory at the Tour.
Well, a tremendous, powerful win. He could do it looking over his shoulders to see where the rest were. It was a tough chase for Boysenhagen, and by the time he caught them up, he had nothing left to start a sprint. Cancellara getting second place. It was indeed Gilbert there across the line in fourth.
Well, Gilbert will be a little bit despondent about that. I'm sure he wanted to get himself the victory, but this man is a very difficult man to beat. As you said, Phil, 14 wins so far this season.
And they don't look like ending, do they? Well, a well-earned drink there for Peter Sagan in his first Tour de France. Everything he's done this year, he said, I'm training for the Tour de France, and now he's come. And he's won a very difficult sprint. The little advantage he has over the other sprinters is he can win almost any which way, uphill and down dale. There's the results for you. Given the same time for Cancellara, Boysenhagen and Gilbert, they caught them right on the line. Bouk Mollema was the Rabobank rider coming in just behind Philippe Gilbert. Because they literally caught those three riders on the line, they've all been given the same time. So it won't be such big games, indeed, for Cancellara. Valverde was sixth. Terrific start for the Irishman from Garmin Sharp. Dan Martin, also in his first Tour de France. And the Canadian, Ryder Hagedal, was there in ninth place. Jurgen van den Broek, his team worked for him today in the end, top 10 for him. Wiggins 16th, Cadel Evans 20th, all given the same time. So we'll call that one a draw today for those two riders. And there is Luis Leon Sanchez, who was involved in the crash, just coming in now. I'm just looking around for the clock. It looks about 4.5 minutes on the clock, lost by Luis Leon Sanchez because of that fall out on course. There he is, Fabian Cancellara, Spartacus. He's had a great battle in the Colosseum today, but he's come out on top and he keeps his yellow jersey. As we pan around here, let's show you again the finish of Peter Sagan, his 14th win of the season. This guy's 22.5 years old. He's as arrogant as you like, and why not? He's got the legs to give him the arrogance required to be a top pro bike rider in this year's Tour de France. He'll be finding his way up to the podium very shortly for his stage prize. And don't forget, we'll take a break, but coming up on the Proforma.com post-race report will be the podiums, the standings, every interview we can give you as we continue our live coverage of stage one of the Tour de France. Fabian Cancellara keeps yellow. Peter Sagan is the man who has won the stage, but this was a great battle, and I hope you enjoyed those last 20 kilometres. We'll see you back here in just a moment. Sagan, win number 14. Welcome back to the Proform.com post-race report here, as we're now in Liège, Belgium. Tomorrow we go right to the French borders for the finish in Tournai, but today we have seen the yellow jersey try to win for 2 out of 2, and he was beaten on the line. All right, let's have a look at our Road ID ride of the day. As the riders now come to the line, Peter Sagan here breaks in his first Tour de France, 22.5 years of age, takes on the best finishers in the world, and he gets his first win. Sagan really left nothing to chance here. He had to hang on to the shirt tails of Cancellara on the way up, and that was our Road ID ride of the day. And don't forget, if you want a chance to win daily prizes and the 2013 Trek Madone, head over to roadid.com/ride and make your prediction for tomorrow's Ride of the Day stage winner. Well, we're just waiting now for the riders to quickly towel down and step up onto the podium. In that last mile and a half of racing today, riders lost up to 3.5 minutes on the climb. And all day they were racing just for a few seconds. It's done a lot of damage in the overall, but not to the stars as far as we know. They were all in that leading group that latched on. Let's have a look then as we look back on the stage. Fabien Cancellara starting in his yellow jersey after his brilliant win in the opening prologue in Liège. And then Bradley Wiggins borrowing the green jersey, also owned by Cancellara, but they were leading the team, Bradley Wiggins and Team Sky. The breakaway today, getting away right from the gun. As soon as Christian Prudhomme, the director of the Tour, pulled the flag in, away went 6 riders, and they gained at one stage just on 4 minutes over the field. The stage was 198 kilometres, 123 miles. They were in the lead for most of them. Tony Martin, trouble yesterday with a flat tyre, trouble today falling off, hurting his hip, his elbow and his knee, but he's finished. The sprint, which came midway through the race, was a big tussle taken out by Johan John as he crossed the line. The action for the race behind for the peloton brought the sprinters out, and Mark Cavendish surprisingly beaten on the left here by Matthew Goss of the Orica Green Edge team from Australia. Another little view of that. It was a chance to see all of the sprinters in this race, though, practice their profession, because they were all taking part. The 4th place taken by Mark Renshaw, the 3rd by Andre Greipel. When they started the chase back, so come the crashes, and there were 2 crashes. This one was seeing on the ground just to the right of the picture there was Luis Leon Sanchez. He finished over 4.5 minutes back. Then this rather silly cameraman here caused a ricochet in the peloton, which eventually caused riders to ricochet and crash. Very, very unfortunate. They all limped in, and Marcus Burkhardt bunny hopping a water bottle to flick it clear of the riders. Well done, Marcus, because that could have caused a major fall at those sort of speeds. Along the banks of the River Meuse, as the riders caught the breakaway almost in sight of the finishing line, but of course the uphill was still to come. Once on the uphill, the yellow jersey of Fabien Cancellara received a message from Dirk de Mol in the team car saying, "You are the best, attack." And he did just that. Sagan was ready, jumped on his wheel. Boysenhagen caught up, but they didn't have the strength, at least Boysenhagen didn't, to take on Cancellara and Sagan in the sprint. Look over his shoulder just to make sure nobody was sneaking up. A fat chance that. And Sagan gets the stage victory, win number 14 for him this year. His first ever win, though, at his first attempt, because this is his first road race stage today in his first Tour de France. A happy young man indeed. His season could not go better. And this man's turned his season around as well. 2 months ago, his collarbone broken in 4 places. Now, after yesterday's win, is still at the lead of the Tour de France. Let's start off then with the stage results first of all. The stage won by Peter Sagan, just under 5 hours for 123 miles. Cancellara second in his yellow jersey. Boysenhagen third. Philippe Gilbert fourth. And Bauke Mollema coming home in 5th place. Good result for the Rabobank man. Valverde tried, got 6th. Robert Hessink 7th. He's the winner of the Amgen Tour of California. Ryder Hagedal, winner of the Giro d'Italia from Canada, in 9th. And Dries Devenens completing the top 10 for the Amiga Pharma Quick Step team. Further down, Sylvain Chavanel, who made the first move, finished 12th. Vincenzo Binarbali, who's also a pre-race favourite for Liquigas Cannondale, showing he kept in touch with 15th. Note on the right, all 0 time. Very important that. Wiggins crossed the line in 16th. Cadell Evans was 20th. But as I say, we'll call this one a draw because no time gained by either of them, which means that they still maintain the same gaps established in the prologue yesterday. Cadell Evans finishing 20th. Now, let me see if we can show you anything else here. Nicholas Roach there, AG2R, also in the frame. That was a good result for Nicholas Roach, actually, up the hill. And, of course, the most important thing, 0 time up there. Down to the podium now as we welcome on board Peter Sagan. As we hear the voice of Daniel Manjas, the speaker of the Tour de France, this young man has stood on just about every podium of every major race this year at some stage.
He is a great competitor, Phil, but the problem is with a guy who's 22 years of age, we really don't know where he's going to go. He's got so much more improvement to make, but for the moment, how do they get by him?
Look at the face of Bernardino, congratulating him, saying well done. as he points to the dignitaries he must shake hands with, including Eddie Merckx, the man with the jacket on, the great Belgian legend Eddie Merckx, without doubt the finest cyclist that has ever lived. Maybe he's looking at the next one.
Well, we very well could be. This man has been such a prolific winner on the international circuit this year, and he makes his victories look so very, very easy. But I wonder what he thought when he was sitting on the wheel of Fabian Turbo Cancellara this afternoon, running up that last kilometre.
Absolutely. Well, let's have a look then at the Michelob Ultra overall standings of the Tour de France after 2 days and stage 1 on the road today. Cancellara keeps his yellow jersey, retains the same time gaps as this morning in the end. 7 seconds over Bradley Wiggins and 7 over Sylvain Chavanel. Let's quickly go down, though, to the overall leader getting his yellow jersey. Well, he gets his 23rd Tour de France jersey now, Paul, because Fabian Cancellara won his 8th stage of the Tour yesterday, got his 22nd. He's keeping his lead. He could keep this lead for nearly a week, you know.
I believe he could keep it for a week, and with a performance like that, don't be surprised if he doesn't sneak out of the pack on one of the flatter run-ins towards the finish later in the week and get himself a few more seconds. Tomorrow he will promenade that yellow jersey again right the way across Belgium, finishing just inside the frontier and Tournai, right on the French borders.
I'm not sure about sneaking out the pack. I think it'd be all like a missile being launched out the pack with the power that man can produce out of those strong legs. So as we wander around the meandering Meuse River here in Liège, we haven't finished yet, so don't go too far away. We will take another short break. We're trying to line up some interviews once the prize presentations are over. We've seen the yellow jersey, we've seen the stage winner, we've still got to see the polka dot jersey and the white jersey too to be presented. So we'll take another break. Rejoin us very shortly as the tour continues.
There are a lot of warning lights.
Welcome back, just in time, leaping onto the podium to the highest point, and that's because he's the king of the mountains. This is Michael Morkov of Denmark. Almost 4 years ago to the day, he was taking a silver medal on the velodromes in Beijing in the team pursuit. He's now abandoned track cycling to become a road racing cyclist, and here he is now in his first Tour de France, his first road race stage. He's the king of the mountains leader. And he's going to be pretty happy about this. This is another major step in his career. He rides for the Saxo Bank Tinkoff team. And this is how he did it. He knew after he won that single point out on the road for the 3rd time for the day, it would be enough to give him the lead. Bernard Hinault congratulates him as he moves down the line. And Eddie Merckx there waiting also. This is the back scenes at the back here. As one of the penances of being the leader of the Tour de France is you have to sign a number of VIP jerseys. Although I doubt whether Fabian sees it that way. He's happy to do it. He is the leader, and he continues. There's the overall standings in the polka dot King of the Mountains jersey, and there's only one small climb on tomorrow's stage, so he might keep it. Michael Morkov, 3 points. Peter Sagan, he got 1 because of that position he finished by winning the stage. He got a point. And Pablo Urtasun, he's 3rd overall. And look at this now. TJ Van Garderen finished in the splinter group that caught up with the 3 guys on the line. Therefore, he keeps his advantage over Edvald Boysenhagen, who got 3rd today. So it was a danger for the moment, but they were given the same time. So TJ Van Garderen from Boulder, Colorado, keeps his leader's best rookie jersey for a 2nd day. He's going to enjoy coming up here, I think. Yes. So that was a good, that just shows just how strong he is, because that was a real difficult road up the mountain today. All right, where do we go tomorrow? Let's check in with our Geico stage map as we now go right to the borders of France tomorrow, and then we'll restart and head across France. We're heading to Tournai on the French frontier. It is a reasonably flat ride. In fact, it's almost totally flat. We go from Vizay, and then we start making our way across pretty much flat roads. There's the one small climb along this rather flat at Soigny. We have the green jersey front. We arrive in Tournai. On the face of it, this one really is for the sprinters tomorrow, the pure sprinters. So don't forget, later today at 4 p.m. Eastern, you can catch the Tour de France. There was a recap on NBC. We haven't had time to give you interviews today, but we will have in our prime time programme today, which comes to you at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Tour de France on the NBC Sports Network. And where will we have all the interviews? Well, we just told you, watch them on the live show. If we can't get them there, we'll always give you, especially in our evening show. And we'll have our questions there of Ask Bubba. We'll have interviews with TJ Van Garderen, with Peter Sagan, and hopefully too with Fabian Cancellara. All right, well, don't forget all the full schedule and the race highlights. Log on to NBCSports.com. We're sorry to say some riders did crash today. Let's hope they're all okay to ride along with us tomorrow here on NBC Sports Network. Enjoy the Tour de France as we move on. We're nosing closer to France now, and still in yellow, Fabian Cancellara. Goodbye.
Sports Network thanks you for watching this presentation of the Tour de France.